Welcome to a fancy episode of the Godzilla podcast where we do a somewhat non-kaiju film.
This is the second go at this, by the way.
Joe, this is the least kaiju film that I believe we've done so far on the podcast, because even Gorath had a sequence of a monster. This one's barely a sequence, couple scenes, few minutes, less than 5.
Yeah, I would say Three Treasures is kind of in the same department where it just had like a scene.
Yeah, but it was like a whole arc, like a whole...
That's true. It was like a whole
story contained
sequence,
within the movie, like more than a suit where it had a setup. Yeah. This is tiny. So
it's also happening to the main character. But.
Not setting you up for disappointment to this commentary, but it's not much of a monster movie. It's a good movie though.
I think it's a pretty darn good movie actually. But we'll get into that. We can do small talk on the commentary because this is a long movie.
It's 2-ish hours and there's so little information on it.
There's so little information.
Oh, how we weep.
Let us get to this beautiful movie.
Samurai.
Yeah, that's right.
DVD.
Does that thing we haven't actually tried out this DVD
This actually
yet.
has a menu. I don't think that Birth of Japan even has a menu, and they both came from Samurai
DVD is where we got this from. Because
Princess of the Moon.
Because Sumo Gorilla has disappointed us once again.
So I'm just doing this. 3, 2, 1, boom.
Waiting for that animation to go.
Yeah,
okay, now we're
that's where you guys are going to get it if you're going to purchase this, because it doesn't actually have a Criterion physical releasing. The way Joe and I viewed it originally was through the Filmstruck app, which we've plugged before.
It's a great app, and if you got good internet, then you might be able to do a commentary over it.
If you don't live in a lead-lined room, apparently.
Drew's internet decided to crap out last time we did this. So.
It was not kept for our listeners' pleasure, but never, ever buffer and commentate. No. Never stream and commentate, because you're going to run into the buffer problem.
You need a good,
and then
pristine...
Everything is out the window after that.
DVD or a Blu-ray in order to take care of it. So this movie, Princess from the Moon, it's a movie based on a old Japanese tale. It's as far as we know, it's the oldest known Japanese prose narrative from the 10th century. And
earliest manuscripts found in like the 1500s.
Yeah,
being written.
It's real. It's real old.
That's actually the name of this movie in Japanese, is the name of the story. It's a Takashiki. No, but like really,
I don't think that's what it's called.
It's Takatori Monogatari. It's literally like Tale of the Bamboo Cutter. So elements of this story have been traced back to 8th century poetry, not just in Japan, but in other places in Asia. So I think there was some Chinese poetry and like some Taiwanese poetry. Anyway, it's such a popular kind of folk tale. Many adaptations.
That it's been adapted many times. Now, it's not Wuthering Heights, so it's not adapted every 2 years like Wuthering Heights is, but it has been adapted about 5 times in a major way.
Yeah.
The first being a 1975 cartoon series, which was on Japanese television. This 1987 version, Princess from the Moon, which was the first major film adaptation of it.
Okay, because this seemed to like kind of kick off adaptations, like a lot of adaptation of this movie, this 1987 movie entitled Princess of the Moon. And
there was a 1989 Big Bird in Japan, which had a sequence having to do with Princess of the Moon. I guess I didn't really look into that one, but that's interesting. So Sesame Street right there.
Yeah, a little trippy thing where Big Bird is this girl named Kaguya is giving him some information, and she's telling him about being from the moon, and I guess he turns around and she's gone.
That's right.
She's back at the moon.
And there was also
Big Bird is befuddled.
A 1988 ballet based on.
See, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. This movie just kicked off the adaptation.
And then there was, I believe there was a 90s symphony based on the movie, which is based on the show.
Okay.
And then, of course, my favorite adaptation of this movie, a movie that I think is like one of the greatest animated films of all time.
It's Studio Ghibli,
and, it was the Oscar for best Best Animated Feature was taken away from it by Big Hero 6, which I like Big Hero 6 a lot, but it is nowhere near as good as the 2013 Isao Takahata masterpiece that is Tale of Princess Kaguya, which is the one I saw first. So watching this movie, I was just like, oh, I see that they're doing this story differently and in different ways. So it's interesting as like an experiment to see two movie makers like make the same movie just in different ways and see how they interpret the material. But this movie's good, but 2013 Tale of Princess Kaguya, if you haven't seen it, try to get a hold of it. It's a fantastic movie. It's made by Studio Ghibli, which if you know them for Princess Mononoke, I'm sure you guys, Godzilla podcast,
Totoro,
people who like anime,
you
probably know who those are. Tale of Princess Kaguya is a freaking masterpiece.
Yeah,
it's a beautiful movie, and so check that out. That's the best adaptation of this movie, but I would say this is a very good one.
If we're talking about what you should check out, you actually shouldn't check this out. Like, I'm not talking about the movie, but don't get it from Samurai DVD. Joe, the Filmstruck, there's got to be some sort of at least 15-day, possibly 30-day free trial for Filmstruck. Watch it there, because it's much better looking.
That's true.
This is really poor color quality.
The stream quality is better than our
It's because DVD. It is Criterion. Unfortunately, no physical releasing for that Criterion release. I know, but I'm seeing the difference in the presentation, like the cleaning up of this film, because the Criterion version on Filmstruck is pristine.
So beautiful.
I would not have appreciated the art direction, which was award-winning art direction, as much if I had not seen the Criterion version first, because this is pretty bland looking.
Drew, are you okay going over the plot of Tale of the Bamboo Cutter / Princess from
there are deviations from the original tale, as with all adaptations. Some things are changed slightly, some things are added, some are taken away entirely. I wasn't as familiar with, I've never seen Tale of Princess Kaguya, the Studio Ghibli one.
And I forgot to bring it because I was totally going to throw it in your face, but then you have 12 of my DVDs now.
I've got to get through this.
I'm waiting for you to get through.
Let me catch up.
What movies do you have in mind right now?
The Deer Hunter, Ten Commandments,
Ten Commandments, Ben-Hur,
Kagemusha, which I've watched most of. Frost Nixon.
I give you a bunch of 3-hour movies.
Yeah, you're
Frost Nixon's short.
Yeah, but it's heavy.
It's not that heavy, actually.
All right.
It's Frost Nixon is a fantastic, exciting movie that's enveloped in it's political, and thus it's it's a great, fun movie. Actually,
Joe, do you want me to do synopses or not?
I'll let you do some Nazis, but I know that this movie is 2 hours long.
So we got time.
Before
we skip over the beginning of this film, just in short, and let's see if I can actually do it short, because that is not my forte. Beginning of the film, you see a village, so you're immediately we're in feudal Japan. We are not, although this is 1987, it's a big movie, guys. This was the Toho 55th anniversary film, so they went all out budget-wise, and this is supposed to be a big movie. I'll get to that later, but it didn't end up being that big. Won some awards, but not critically received very well. Didn't make that much money, unfortunately. The director
is Kon Ichikawa.
Yeah, I mean, he'd come off in the 60s. He really hit his hot streak between, I think it's 50 and 65.
Yeah,
Joe, I was looking at his filmography. I don't even know if it was his entire filmography, but some years, that guy was making 3 films in a year. A lot of years he was making 2, yeah. Between 50 and 65, he wrote 37 screenplays, I want to say. So this is still later on.
I got a little bit of different. I got a little bit of different info on that.
Okay, but to get to story, I just had to say that because it's a famed director. His vision for the movie was he wanted to make a film of pure diversion. That's his quoted as saying. Does that just mean diverted from your everyday life?
I think he means a movie that you're totally engrossed in that's pure fantasy.
Yeah.
So it's not a movie. Now, I've never seen any of his other movies, but he's got some heavy. When you're talking about heavy movies, I think he's got some of those, and he's got some famous ones from the 50s that I just haven't seen yet. He's one of the filmmakers that I just haven't delved into yet, and this is the first movie of his I've seen, and that's it.
Let me say real quick, off of his Ichikawa's films are marked with a certain darkness and bleakness, punctuated with sparks of humanity.
So
that's a quote.
Yeah, I have that That quote is well true. How dare you?
Joe, well, you pretty much just said exactly that.
Give us the rest of the synopsis.
Starts off in feudal Japan. There is an emperor guy, not the emperor, but a very high up in the government system, going through this village. Almost runs over a poor woman. He's going at full speed. We're introduced to we immediately know he's a morally good character in the right by taking this old woman who's about to be trampled because this guy said, if anybody gets in my way, just run him over. So he pushes her out of the way and is kind of flabbergasted. He's not angry because he's a really, really good guy. So even though the lady was about to run over, where he's going to show up later.
Later.
Yeah, he kind of gets tied into the story, but we know he's good. Yes. Unequivocally. Then a very weird guy, cut to a guy walking through the woods, all joyously singing to himself, gets to a bamboo cutter's house, a man who makes things with bamboo. I don't know if it's like actual useful everyday objects or just art, but this bamboo cutter is Mifune. Toshiro Mifune,
a little older.
Yeah, 87.
Hard for us to recognize.
Yeah, he's got prosthetic brows, and he's pretty, I don't know. He's older.
He's aged a bit.
It's harder to tell it's him.
The last movie...
There are certain shots where you can see Mifune in there, but...
So he was in 1941, Spielberg's movie.
What movie?
So that was in like 1980, I think. Around there. Not entirely sure.
Sorry, that whole sentence just didn't make sense.
Sorry, the movie is called 1941.
Gotcha.
It's an early Spielberg movie. Kind of a big flop for Spielberg. It was in between... It was like right before E.T. or something.
Yeah.
And that had Toshiro Mifune, and he was in like a military uniform. He looked a lot more like Mifune in that movie. This one, he does. I think it is I think it's the prosthetics. I think also we're used to seeing Mifune, who was like in his prime in the 1950s and early 1960s.
Leading man, sharp look, super strong
It
actor.
took me and Drew 35 minutes to figure out that this was
we knew
Mifune
was in the film, but upon his introduction as a character, it was like, I think that's him. Is that him?
Yeah, and he acts less like regular Mifune.
I know, because we're going to talk about this sequence here in a moment that he's walking through the forest. So this buyer of the bamboo things that Mifune's character makes goes to the house, and exposition, we find out that they had a daughter, the wife of this bamboo cutter, and the bamboo cutter, she was 5 years old, she passed away. I don't think it was like a disease probably, but the wife is just beside herself with grief. She's like, it should have been me. That's like the whole beginning of this movie. It should have been me. It should have been me. And one day they are in their home when suddenly the whole world starts shaking. Yeah, exactly. And fire engulfs the mountainside next to them.
Lots of really cool light effects coming through.
Their hut shakes. They're like shaking to the ground, and Mifune says, we have to run out, because they see this like explosion, just bright light, and their window shuts on its own accord from the explosion. They run out of the hut, and it's immediately over. So it couldn't have been an earthquake. They don't know what it was. The wife is, again, beside herself with grief, so she says, that explosion happened near her grave, or their little 5-year-old's grave. I have to go and check on it. It's in the bamboo forest where they buried her. Where Mifune goes to get his bamboo, he's feeling down. He has not went there for a while because he's also grief-stricken, even though he's like constantly to his wife, you should get over this. Then he goes into the forest because he won't let his wife, because of course the man has to do it. Goes in, checks out this little, I don't know what that meant, but...
he checks out this like pod
that's next to his daughter's grave.
And it's got a little baby.
Like a not even an infant, but they're a newborn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then the
it
child
cracks open before him, this pod. It's hot. I'm seeing him because we're caught up with the film now. The pod is hot, and then it cracks open, I think, of its own accord. No, he drops it. And he's like, what the heck? There's a baby in here. Baby crawls out, little animatronic baby.
And then a bunch of fades of the child growing up very quickly until it's like
until I think it was
4-year-old, maybe?
5, because it was the age of his daughter when she passed away. That's and right. It looks like his daughter. Dun, dun, dun.
With creepy blue eyes.
So I believe here is actually the beginning of the tale itself, tale of the bamboo cutter. In the tale, I don't know what compels him to go into the forest. Probably
as far as I can tell, he didn't have a daughter that died. It's just that he's going into the forest to cut bamboo, and it's either he sees it in the stalk of like a bamboo, the stump that he's cut off, a child. Yeah, it's just there. But in this movie, it's a little pod in the bamboo forest. So they lean more into the sci-fi alien aspect, and that's going to come up later.
They do. And then later on in the movie, her pod that she came out of turns out to be made of gold, so he's making money by taking off pieces of the pod and giving it to the one guy, the salesman guy.
And it's another slight deviance from the story itself, the written story, because I guess in the story he keeps going back to the forest, and every time he cuts down a bamboo, there's a nugget of gold inside these bamboo stalks. Apparently in the story itself, not in the story of the movie, that gold was given to them from, here's the big spoiler, she is from the moon.
That's right.
The moon people gave that as like a dowry or inheritance for her. It's as so that she can be well taken care of. So it's kind of still similar, that in the film, because who knows if the moon people just have stuff made of gold and they didn't even realize that. But and you know what, it never goes into in the movie either, Joe, what she did to be cast down to, no, it does go into why she was cast down to Earth, and that's another difference from the story. So they keep like the basic story structure, but they change most of the details. In the story, I think there's one of two possibilities in the story of why she's down to Earth. One, she committed a crime, and that's her kind of punishment, exile. And there was another thing, I can't remember why. But in this story, it's just that the ship crashed she was on.
Yeah,
it was an accident.
Spaceship crashed, which is a big deviant, I'm sure, from the 10th century version. There was no Close Encounters of the Third Kind spaceship going on.
And also, in the story, it makes sense as to why she was left on the Earth, not in the story of the film, because it was a punishment.
Yeah.
Like, she was supposed to...
She does have, like, an orb thing that she takes with her.
I forgot about the orb. A big marble.
She doesn't remember anything.
Nope. And she's also very alien-like at this point. This 5-year-old has some creepy eyes. Yeah, she doesn't act like a normal kid. Got some psychic powers.
And she's got this orb thing, and it's somehow communicating to her, telling her... At some point, she figures out, and I can't remember what they use in the movie to do this, but at some point she figures out that she's going to be returning back to the moon. And remember, I think we skipped over the fact that, she does get to about 5 years old, and then she keeps growing past that up until she's like a young woman.
As far as I could tell in the actual written story, I think she grows up normally, like years pass by, but in this film, she's a 5-year-old for a couple days, a couple weeks, and then suddenly she's a young woman.
That's right.
It happens very quickly.
And then all the wealth from the big gold thing, they buy a house, and then she's beautiful, of course, so all the lords from the land, including like the emperors.
Yeah, the emperor eventually will call for her. You gotta be my wife.
They all go after her, and they try to court her, and then she comes up with fantastical
some
things,
impossible tasks
that can win them her love. And this includes going to get like a fleece, like a famous unburnable rat gold fleece
and
thing,
like a crazy diamond tree,
a tree made of that gives pearls or something away. And I'm sorry if I got that one wrong. I can't really remember. And then one guy has to defeat a dragon.
Yeah, there are 5 treasures in the written story. There are 3 in the film.
There's also 3 in the Japanese cartoon as well.
So they just
Tale of Princess Kaguya.
They make it a good way to be like,
3.
3 is a good amount. No need for the 5.
3 is a good amount. This girl is freaking creepy though.
Mm-hmm. She is. There's a really cool effect here where there's some children making fun of her because she looks scary with her blue eyes, and so the kids feel uneasy around her. They throw a rock at her, hits her in the head. She's bleeding from the head, and with a slow swoop of her hand, the bleeding is gone.
Yeah.
And also, she can bring things back to life, people. How creepy is that?
It is crazy. So her powers are never really explored that much, except in this beginning part.
No. And also, what gets me is how much creepier she is as this 5-year-old child, and then when she becomes a young woman, she's just kind of a normal person, aside from the little magic crystal thing, but she doesn't, like, reveal that to anybody. Only her parents know about that. But as a child, this hunter shoots down a bird. Bird's got an arrow in it. It's dead. It's on the ground. She walks up to it, just, like, puts her hand on it, thing comes back to life. Everyone in the village is angry with the bamboo cutter and his wife. They're like, you have a daughter that is not normal. And then you know what makes them okay with it? When she grows up and is just this beautiful woman, suddenly they forgive everything.
It's true. I would too.
She's a beautiful lady. She's normal now. Doesn't have creepy eyes anymore.
No.
She's so much less alien when she grows up.
She does have weird eyebrows. But everybody has weird eyebrows.
Yeah, this is just a feudal Japan thing, because every female has eyebrows that are gone. They're like shaven. And then the eyebrows are like in the middle of their forehead. It was a style.
It was a strange style. I do see it a lot in Japanese.
They're kind of old painting style
history movies. Yeah. Okay, so the director. Let's get back into it.
Yeah.
He was born November 20th, 1915, and died in 2008 on February 13th.
92. That makes him.
Yeah, he lived for a long.
You know what?
time.
His last film, Joe, that released, I believe he was the director on. 90 years old. It was in 2006. His last film. That guy, man.
Wow.
I don't know if he had done many before that,
incredible.
like if he took a break.
You know, I just found out Ridley Scott is 80. And he's still making like a movie a year. He's like sick.
Something about with the whole Kevin Spacey incident, and he was in a film of Ridley Scott's. They just cut him out of it.
They cut him out of it.
The comment they're like, "Are you going to be able to do this so last minute?" The director, yeah, he's like, "Well, I do them fast, so we'll be fine."
And
Ridley Scott's like, "Yeah."
And that guy just got nominated at the Academy Awards. The guy who replaced him.
Wow, what movie was that again?
I think it was called All the Money in the World, but I might be getting the title mixed up with another similar movie.
Yeah, you guys know better than us.
I haven't seen the movie yet, though. I will see it.
These Hollywood, Japanese Hollywood people.
They live for forever, dude. Hayao Miyazaki's 80-something. Isao Takahata, who directed the cartoon version of this, so Tale of Princess Kaguya, he was 80-something when he made that movie.
They're working so far, because at that point, if
there's something about film directors that have long careers, they're somehow immortal. That's as far as I can tell. That's what
if they still have the skills to do it later. I mean, they're going to have all this wealth of experience to be able to draw from.
I can't believe he was 90 when he did it last. That's crazy. That's crazy. I remember when my grandpa was like 85. Or my great grandpa when he was like 85. That's when things started to be like, yeah.
My grandma just turned 84 this year, and so we are. Yeah, she's been going slowly downhill. She's getting a little slower, getting a little harder to, talk to, but yeah.
Yep. That's really the thing, isn't it? It's the communication. But you know what? If you're a film director, you're making a movie a year, you're having to deal with like large groups of people all the time. Maybe that keeps you alive in some way. I don't know.
Since making a movie is such a team thing, if you have had people, if you're working with the same people you've worked with for however long, they know your style, they know your communication, so you don't have to. I don't want to say work as hard, but not work as hard to communicate your ideas.
It's really exciting when I hear, Ridley Scott is 80 years old. Well, one part is exciting. One part is like, oh, crap, I don't want to lose Ridley Scott.
Please don't go away, buddy.
Yeah, okay.
I like his films.
All right, so he loved drawing as a child, and he loved watching samurai films. That was a big deal. And he wanted to actually become an animator after watching Disney's Silly Symphony.
Yeah.
But eventually he just became a film director. He graduated from a tech school in Osaka, and in 1933 he got a job with a film rental place, which was J.O. Studio.
And it was in their animation department, so not specifically possibly as an animator. He just worked in their animation department.
And J.O. Studio would eventually merge with a little company called Toho.
Yeah.
And that was when they became the Toho as it is now, when that merger happened.
This place, J.O. Studio, PCL, and Toho Film Distribution is what it was called at that point, came together, and you're right, Toho Film Company.
Toho. And Ichikawa got the chance to create a once lost short film called Girl at Dojo Temple, which I guess they found very recently. And
it's just too bad what happened.
And then he worked his way up, eventually becoming a very, very famous film director who I'd heard of before this movie, but never watched any of his movies yet, with now classic and highly respected films in his filmography, including many movies I've heard before. These are the four that I recognize. Tokyo Olympiad, The Burmese Harp, Fires on the Plain, which is supposed to be like one of the greatest war movies of all time, and a movie called An Actor's Revenge.
I was going to say there was some two notable anti-war films. I think that Fire one you just mentioned was one. But yes, the reason he should be held in esteem, and this is all relevant, is because I think some critics do class him with, as you said, is a notable Japanese film director. Class him with Akira Kurosawa. I don't know this guy, Kenji Mizoguchi. And Yasujiro Ozu. So Ozu.
Mizoguchi made...
Kurosawa, Ozu, and Ichikawa.
Mizoguchi. He made a movie called Tale of... Oh, crap. I'll find it. He made a very good movie that I've seen once.
when you're really looking into his stuff, as you said, he was influenced by Disney. That's the reason he wanted to even go into movies, but he said he thought himself as... Okay, this was later on, decades after his going into this JO Studios. He said to an interviewer, "I'm still a cartoonist, and I think the greatest influence on my films, besides Chaplin, particularly The Gold Rush, is probably Disney." So it's cartoons, these silly symphonies that really inspired him.
Yeah. Okay, so Kenji Mizoguchi, who you brought up for a second there, the movie is called Ugetsu. Ugetsu is the English language name. It's Ugetsu Monogatari, which means tale of. It's what that is. So every time you see tale of blah, blah, blah in Japanese movies, it's Monogatari, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, and I'm sorry. So Ugetsu Monogatari, Sancho the Bailiff, which is a big film, and A Life of Oharu. God, I'm having trouble today. Anyway, those three movies, especially the story of late chrysanthemums as well. Those are also seen as like really classic 1950s Japanese film was really special, and it was because of filmmakers like Mizoguchi, probably filmmakers like this one here, Ichikawa, and Kurosawa, of course, had his big run in the 50s. That's why I say like 1950s Japanese film. It's just really like a golden age of Japanese film. I'm not the only person to say that, I'm sure. Anyway, so like there's just a bunch of really great directors, a bunch of really great films.
And say from 50 to 65 is when Ichikawa was most prolific. So
now this is Ichikawa's late period. Mm-hmm. He, along with Kurosawa, along with Mizoguchi, kind of had his heyday back in the 50s and 60s. And then this was his later work.
Yeah, at this point, he's 60-something, so yeah.
But, I mean, I can see in this movie, we got a very trained artist behind the lens of this movie.
Looks good.
It's a very it's a very well made movie in all of the technical aspects at the very least. So the special effects, the production design is fantastic. The cinematography is beautiful.
I like the script and the acting.
The script is pretty good. The performances are pretty good as well. So like I like
the performances of the nobleman and the emperor. Yeah,
I can see this director being like a really high, big dollar guy.
I think you agreed, and if I were to poke only one hole in like the film to be like maybe why it's not as strong, at least for me, is that we're following Caga, I think is her name.
Yeah, we're following the bamboo cutter first for like the first 45 minutes of the movie, and then it becomes her
a main character. When it becomes her movie, she just doesn't do too much. I mean, it's kind of
it's the biggest flaw in the movie.
Yeah, because you're following somebody who, I mean, she sends off these noblemen who want to marry her. This is before the emperor makes proposals towards her to become married.
She's a little two-dimensional.
Well, it's just that they don't give her much to do. She tells these guys impossible tasks to go off and do, and then she's just kind of sorrowful and actual physically, like going out and doing stuff. Not much. And I mean, the actress portraying Kaguya, she does a good job portraying the like inner turmoil, and especially at the end when she's like, she really has to leave.
She's about to be taken away from Earth.
Yeah. She's I don't know.
So she does a good job. It's not a perfect movie, but it is like a well-made movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
well put together. Aspects. I mean, it doesn't, to me, and that's a real big praising point for the film. If the film doesn't feel like 2 hours, it's probably pretty good. Yeah.
So his screenwriter's name is Nato Wada, and she was the person who wrote a bunch of screenplays between 1950 and 1965. Wrote a ton of screenplays, and that was just the person that he worked with the most. So the way I know where you looked that up on, and it's written weird, and that's why. It wasn't him. It wasn't him that wrote.
There were mostly adaptations.
And when they retired from writing, there was a big shift in Ichikawa's style, which was said to be bleak and ironic, like you said, with a lot of technical expertise. And although, in my opinion, Princess from the Moon has all the technical expertise that he's apparently known for, I wouldn't call this movie that bleak. Maybe a little bit, but that's just from like the story itself. I wouldn't call this movie like a super bleak.
I would lean more towards the bleakness because
sad, but I wouldn't call it bleak.
When you're looking at Mifune's character, it certainly is, because once he hits the wealth, once they realize that pod was gold, and they don't make him instantly wealthy, but he doesn't do his day job anymore. He's no longer a bamboo craftsman. They just slowly sell off pieces of gold from this pod she left, and that's why it's kind of unfortunate so we get an adaptation here, as I've already said 50 times. The wife is opposed to him selling off these pieces of gold because she says it belongs to their daughter, in air quotes, the alien from the moon, which we're not aware she's from the moon yet. But in the written story, that's what it's for. That's what the gold's for, is to make sure she's taken care of. So he's kind of using it for good, you know? I mean, he doesn't treat her badly. Her parents are wonderful towards her. They just are so, I don't know. Although they treat her as a daughter, there's never quite the full connection. At least you don't get it until the very end, like the parental to child, their child connection. At the very end, you certainly get it when she's about to leave. The mother is like torn apart.
Is the mother Teoshime? Is that the name?
I don't want to say, yeah.
I was having trouble finding out that information.
That's actually a big thing about this movie, is the females. They do the best acting in the film.
Huge.
Like the Princess Kaguya herself, Akino, I think is her name, the blind girl, who shows up about midway through the film, and really, because she grows up quickly, Princess Kaguya, she doesn't know a lot about the world, and maybe that's part of the acting, is that she's so oblivious to earthlings, like she doesn't know how to act around people. So aside from her being extremely beautiful and that attracts these noblemen, she is super mysterious because she doesn't know much. She acts aloof, not like unkind, but she doesn't know Earth customs.
So Kaguya is played by, or Kaya, she calls it, I think, in the movie. Yasuko,
that's the name. You're right. That's the name of their daughter.
Sakaguchi. And then the mother, I believe this is the mother, is Ayako Wakao, I believe is her name.
Okay.
Anyway, so Kaguya, Yasuko Sawaguchi. Here was my big surprise. We watched Princess from the Moon, and I was like, Drew, after like 5 minutes of watching this thing, I was like, I'm in love with this actress.
And then she shows up in
beautiful. And then the biggest surprise of all, Jason Poor was over here, right? We watched, we did the podcast that we watched Godzilla 1984.
There she is.
And then she's totally the leading lady in Godzilla 1984. I'm like, oh my God, yes, twice in a row.
I wish though we would. How old is she? It's bugging me
right now. Okay, she was born in 1965, so she's 50. No,
not today. In the film.
Oh, in the film.
In 84, she would have been 24. Yeah, I want to say my math is right there, but she does not look 24 in Godzilla 1984. No, she looks like 16, 17 tops. That's what was doing me. We're going to get into that when we get into 1984, but it was throwing me for a loop.
She's got that Japanese in her, man. She's younger looking. That's what she is.
But she's particularly adorable. Gorgeous. Yeah. She has a very she's definitely Japanese, but she has a very traditional Japanese looks.
She is
God,
I don't know, there's something about her. Anyway, she was born in 1965.
Joe and I are both spinning.
There's not much information on her, so we're not going to have much for Godzilla 1984 either, which sucks because we're going to watch that one twice. Anyway, she won. The first time Toho did this, she won a contest called the Cinderella Beauty Contest.
Yeah.
The first time they put it on in 1984, and that landed her first film role in a movie called Policeman 3. And then she eventually got and then she eventually got Godzilla 1984. We're actually watching this out of order. And eventually she got Kaguya, and she's just a kind of big television, famous TV drama actress. Became a huge star.
Good looking and can act.
Yep, and has a poorly written IMDb profile, by the way, from whoever was her agency who put her on there.
When you IMDb Princess of the Moon, nothing.
Anyway, she also appears, by the way, in Godzilla vs. Biollante.
She appears in a movie
called Orochi, which may be a kaiju film. I'm not sure. So that's all the information I have on her. Here's what it really is, though, Drew. She's now my favorite actress throughout this entire show. We're halfway through the movies, and I don't know. The eye candy of that woman is
throughout the show. Our podcast,
the Godzilla podcast. Yes.
Wait a second. Is she beat out Linda Miller?
Oh no, she didn't beat out Linda Miller. But as far as non-Linda Miller is concerned, she is very high up there.
For non-diehards of the podcast, for those who have forgotten, if you ever watch King Kong Escapes, you get Linda Miller. Gorgeous woman.
She's also gorgeous little blonde firecracker.
That firecracker. Main actress of the movie, by the way. So not only do you get good actresses, good looking actresses, they're also part of the main cast. Right. Joe, if you're talking about Toho Cinderella Beauty Contest, there is another winner of that.
That's right. Tell us about her.
Her name is Megumi Odaka, and this was her start because there were 3.
She's the blind girl.
Akino. And she really, even though she's very young in this film, like, I don't know what her actual age is in the film, but she looks real young. And the actress's Megumi Odaka age when this movie was made, 1987, she was 15 years old.
Whoa!
15. And she won an award for it. Where are we at? She won the Japanese Academy Award for Rookie of the Year or Newcomer of the Year for her performance in Princess of the Moon. So, three things about this movie. Didn't make back its money. About 2 billion yen is what I read in one source.
Has 2 Cinderella Beauty Contest winners.
And also not critically acclaimed. Like, it just...
Really?
I don't know. I kind of... I thought my feelings are mixed with the film. I'm, like, definitely for it, but I'm not like, woo, yes, go out and watch Princess of the Moon immediately.
I agree. We can clear all these facts out of the way, I guess. Toshiro Mifune, in case you need a reminder, we did go into him quite a bit with the Three Treasures commentary.
I think that was like half of our commentary.
Yeah, that's true. And Mifune is honestly...
He's a powerhouse of a man.
He is Japan's biggest star that I know of, like, of all time, basically.
Yeah. Guy's just a charming fellow.
Super charming.
Super, like... huge on-screen presence.
Leading man in many, many great Japanese films.
Like, people who can act in these Japanese movies, who can act well, are completely outclassed by Mifune, in my opinion. Somehow, when he's on screen, the dude just, like, is so captivating. It's his looks, it's his ferocity. God, I can't get enough Mifune.
If you want to see him in an English language movie, besides 1941, which I have never seen all the way through, but he was in Shogun, the television miniseries.
And this was an American.
Yeah, this was ABC was putting on, I believe it was ABC. They were putting on big, huge miniseries because they put on Roots, right? And Roots was just this huge television hit. Mm-hmm. The next one they did that was also a gigantic hit was Shogun, and he played like the main Japanese dude.
When did this take place? You know what, year-ish? 80s? Okay.
Yeah,
so this is around this time, all right.
Yeah. And Akira Kurosawa hated it. That was famous. He hated it, and that was what long after, like, they kind of burned a bridge between Kurosawa and Mifune.
Oh, that's too bad.
Anyway, so this is Mifune's kind of late period when he was basically taking anything, but this is actually a pretty good movie.
Yeah.
And it's too bad. It kind of waned a bit. His last movie with Kurosawa was Redbeard, which was 65, I think.
The reason it's notable that it didn't make back its money, that it wasn't critically received very well, is because it was supposed to be such a big movie from such a big director who's no longer in his prime completely. But it's just sad because I think it's a good film.
I think it's a solid film.
It's very, very solid.
I don't think it deserves to lose money.
There's like a lot, like right here. when there's a lot of shots of noble people doing like being noble, and it's kind of slower. It looks really good, and the costuming, my God, the costuming of these people.
So some people might not like the cinematography of this movie. Now, I like it quite a bit. I think it's very nice, but it's real pretty. It does fall into the overuse of diffusion filter.
You know what, Joe? What was I just barely watching? This is an 80s thing.
It is.
I haven't finished it yet, but I've watched most of Heathers. And the whole movie glows, as in the opening sequence to the movie Heathers. I thought it was a dream sequence. It was so like bright aura-y around everybody. And then you're watching the movie, and it's for the whole movie. So it's just the style of the time. Not even in Japan. It's
pretty much everywhere. So
everything glows.
Let me pull up the Wikipedia page for diffusion filter in case you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about. A diffusion filter is a translucent photographic filter used for special effects. When used in front of the camera lens, a diffusion filter softens subjects and generates a dreamy haze, which is probably what we're seeing here. This can also be improvised by smearing petroleum jelly on a UV filter. Or shooting through a nylon stocking. Now, petroleum jelly on a UV filter. Before the special editions of Star Wars, when the land speeder is going across the desert,
that's what they did to
totally
cover
what
the wheels.
They did. That's totally what they did. They put a spot of your Vaseline or jelly, or they just put it in one spot of the filter in front of the camera lens, and then they panned with it to cover it up. So
it made kind of a
now the computer like took it out.
Yeah, because I can see that in that shot when it's not the special edition later. It's kind of got an orange glow underneath the speeder.
Right. So now that was a heavy use of that. That was like to cover up something.
Yeah.
But that is what they basically did. They used the same kind of thing that they would have with the diffusion filters. Now, the nylon stocking thing. Drew, I get excited about this kind of stuff, and I'm sorry, and it's a visual thing, so there's no way for me to like tell you what's going on.
We still got another hour of the movie.
One of my favorite cinematographers is named Jan Kaminski. Now, he's been working with Steven Spielberg since Schindler's List. He's been doing, like, I think all but like one of his movies since then have been the same cinematographer. So if you watch kind of like late era Spielberg, you'll see that they all have a very similar look because they're all shot by the same dude, Jan Kaminski, and he's an amazing cinematographer.
Schindler's List looks fantastic.
Yeah, that was one of the things I was really like kind of deep delving into, was like how specific cinematographers did things. He was a big deal because like he would do something. He would just like completely blow out windows, which means shine a lot of light through the windows, and then when you're watching a movie, you'll see that the window is just white and like the light is coming off there. And then he'd have a lot of fog to get some atmosphere into the movies. You'll see this in a lot of late Spielberg movies. And then there'll also be this thing where there's just sort of like this beautiful haziness throughout the entire movie. And what he would do is he would take a very specific type of nylon stocking that is very expensive, by the way. He would just kind of cut it and put it in front of the camera, but behind the lens. And when he'd screw the lens into the camera, there'd just be this like nylon filter. Yeah. Now you can see it happen if you're in an action scene, the camera's moving around a lot, like in War of the Worlds. If you pause it, you'll see these little like haze lines. Those are actually the lines of nylon.
Oh my god,
going through the thing.
That's crazy.
And it just creates this beautiful effect. Now that was behind the camera type stuff. So that's the reason I got excited when I was like, let's talk about diffusion.
What's crazy to me is that can bleed into like mainstream film. That was a big movie.
You'll just see that. That's a little bit more of a subtle diffusion, but it really like the reason why Jan Kaminski shot movies and why Spielberg movies really stand out visually, like they're doing stuff like that other people aren't doing. Other people do like a very clear sort of digital look now.
They're creating their own style.
It's a much more like, I don't know, it's like a hazy sort of film look that just looks beautiful in its own way. The diffusion that they use in this movie is, I believe, just a diffusion lens. Now they've been using this technique for years, probably since the 20s. I know at least since the 30s they've been using diffusion filters in movies. Now what they usually do, you'll see this if you watch the movie Casablanca. The whole movie will not be diffusion, most of it. But then there'll be a close-up of
Certainly
Ingrid,
when you're on our stars,
Ingrid Bergman, and she'll have a catch light, which means a light going straight into her eyes, and then a very soft light coming from above. It's called like a butterfly pattern lighting, which means light going straight down her face, basically, to take all the lines out of the face and to just make her look gorgeous. And then the diffusion filter adds like a dreamy quality to it. And what will happen, you'll see this in old movies a lot, if the starlet's like, look it up, especially in Casablanca, especially with Ingrid Bergman.
And then when they have that
she'll look up when she's
voice.
when she's about to like cry, or she's on the verge of it. It's like the way that the diffusion filter just makes her look like it makes her look like a angel.
I know, I was about to say the magnificence of the acting combined with the art of the picture and all of it coming together to be like, this is an elevated experience, people.
A really good way to see diffusion versus not diffusion. Watch Casablanca and you'll notice, why are the close-ups on Ingrid Bergman a little different? And it's because they have diffusion that's kind of like spreading the light out, adding a dreamy haze to it.
That's one thing I've heard, is if you're watching stuff like that now, fully restored on like a huge 4K, the definition that we are in with TVs now is, yes, what you just said, from shot to shot, you can like see the difference. Like they could definitely see it back then in the theaters, but now it's like, it's a very sharp contrast in comparison. So like, whoa, this shot is different than the last.
To some extent, yes. I know what you're talking about with when things are maybe in 2K and then they're added resolution to 4K. And when you're doing film, you only need the image that's going to work on a projection. It doesn't really matter past that. And then, of course, it doesn't. Like a lot of special effects shots were not as high definition as high definition in quotes, because that's not really what it was, because it was film, and film doesn't have definition. But some shots will be less, the film stock won't be as clear or as big as the film stock during like the drama scenes and stuff like that. It's different. Yeah, I get what you're saying now. I know there are some movies that don't go up to 4K very well.
Well, things just get pointed out. It's like a different experience all of a sudden. Possibly even from what was intended.
And some of that may be like, why didn't they go in and fix it up a little bit for the Blu-ray?
Which is one reason why, when we're speaking, Night of the Living Dead just got the Criterion releasing.
This movie does diffusion almost throughout the entire movie.
It makes the whole film feel fantastic and dreamy.
It does, and I'm sure that was the reason why. I'm sure this guy was not like, we need so much diffusion. What he probably did was like, how do I make this feel like a fantasy? How do I make this feel like unreal and strange? And the thing is, like, diffusion is a great way to get that done. And every time, there's diffusion in every scene, but every time Kaguya is in focus, the diffusion is
close-ups. It's
extra like there's just extra diffusion.
We just barely passed the meeting of Akino, the 15-year-old blind girl, the one who won the award, and Kaya. When we say Kaguya and Kaya, same person, it's Princess Kaguya becomes her nickname as she becomes an older beauty, but the daughter's name of the bamboo cutter and his wife, her name was Kaya. So closeness in the family. They call this alien who appeared and is the daughter's, not really, because the daughter actually died, Kaya, but everyone calls her Princess Kaguya. That interaction between the two of them, you and I, that's the very first time we're like, this is so bright. Like, they have halos.
They do, and every scene with her is especially like big on that. And then there's something added with it. So Casablanca is black and white, and kind of like you can get away with like the crazy haziness of it a little bit more. The crazy haziness of this movie, I don't know, it's because of the vibrance of the purples and the blues. Whenever she's around, just the colors are crazy. And so there's also that added effect of doing that. Now, if you're going to talk to a cinematographer nowadays, and maybe even back then, they probably would have said this was too much. Like, this is way too much diffusion, that sort of thing. But I think it's fantastic looking. I don't know. There's something special about this movie visually because of that.
Well, it lends itself well to the type of story that they're portraying. If it was more, I don't know, because you already are stepping back in time with a movie like this, and it's a fantasy story. It's not like an actual... It's an old folk tale. So the visual style matches the story, I think, very well. I think this is the beginning of when we get... the
little ball is calling out.
This is totally just animated, but it looks really well done. the ball starts glowing at night, signaling that she's being taken back home. Again, that's the sort of plot hole, kind of, the only one I can poke in the film, and I didn't realize until way after thinking about the movie. Why is she left here on Earth? Why can't they just immediately come back and get her? Because as far as we can get out of the story in the film, she's not being she's not being punished. Not being punished for any sort of crime that we know of. It's just that the ship that was for some reason sailing a little too close to the Earth, or maybe it was hovering over the Earth and something happened.
The Martians had to do their investigation of the crash, right?
Yeah, well, maybe they couldn't find her.
Then they realized, they might have the little balls on them, so she
Well, that was how she explains that that's where they escaped from the ship, because now her memories are coming back, or she's getting these messages through this little ball. Everyone else on the alien ship died, so here we go, Joe, maybe not a plot hole. They maybe thought that she had passed away as well, and then the longer she's on Earth, all of a sudden they can sense her, or they call to her through this little thing. I just don't know why it takes them so long to come and get her. Long enough for her to have this whole courtship process with the guys, with the nobleman, and then the emperor interest in her. There is actually true romance in the movie, which is surprising, I want to say, because I would say the third gentleman caller for her, nobleman, actually has true love for her, at least by the end of the film. Would you agree with that? The guy that almost gets killed by Nessie.
Well, he's dragon. The only one that's not a cheater.
He's not a cheater, but also he has real feelings for her, and I think Shida has for him as well, because he's the only one she has confidence in. So 3 noblemen, 2 are interested in her very early on, and it seems for more selfish reasons. One of those 2 noblemen was married, but here he's beginning his harem, I guess, just, probably normal back then, don't know, or he's willing to give up his wife for this Kaguya. Of the 2 noblemen early on, which are both just crooked guys, Joe, the more overweight one, I want to say, the one that's larger in the face, I love his look. He looks so...
those 2 characters are very fun to watch.
Yeah. Every interaction they have, because they're just so sly and they're undercutting each other at every possible turn. They're friendly competition constantly, so all that Kaguya is to them is another goal, another contest to win, and that's why they both cheat when they're given the impossible tasks. But this third nobleman that shows up a little bit later, they haven't went on these tasks yet, but 2 gentlemen callers pining for her. She's just saying no, no, no. In fact, I don't think she'll even meet with them, because the parents are saying nope, she's not interested. But they've seen her from afar, so they want her. The third nobleman meets her on the road as she's being pulled in a cart. And we have to say, I don't think we've mentioned it yet, it's very strange that the bamboo cutter and his wife, and now Princess Kaguya, before just Kaya, come into this wealth, because nobody knows how, and it's certainly back then in a class system in feudal Japan. It's very strange that a lowly bamboo cutter now has this sprawling home, and he has a lot of land and a lot of wealth, and nobody knows where it came from. So the thing they're giving them is that all the other classes are I guess it's okay because he has a beautiful daughter that they're trying to marry into nobility, essentially. So she says no, but that's the only, in being married, but that's the only justification they have for this wealth is we're not actually noble people, but it's okay that we have all this money and stuff, and we're trying to enter into this elite class, not that the parents have any interest in it really, because they want their daughter to get married off. Not for nefarious reasons. The parents aren't pushing her. They want what's best for her, and so they think it's going to be good for her to marry one of these guys. The third one comes in with true intention, gets stopped in a cart in the road, and is he's kind of a brat at the beginning, and he's not a very kind person.
And I was surprised that the movie was going to treat him really well.
Well, it's because he has a change of heart when he sees her. She stands up to him. He's impressed by it, and I think my interpretation of it is that he actually does change. Maybe he doesn't. Do you think he actually changes, or is it just that he's enamored with her actually standing up to him?
I'm not sure. That's
in any case, he's portrayed as being noble, because he almost dies out at sea, which we're going to see later. But when he comes back, he fights off all these assassins.
Yeah, I forgot about that. Thank you.
But see, yeah, he's portrayed as I'm in the right, as in I'm unkillable. I have a noble cause, therefore I'm able to overcome all this adversity. He almost drowned at sea. But yeah.
a very famous. Sorry, I'm going to go back to diffusion real quick.
Go for it, Joe. We'll go back.
A very famous use of diffusion is on the Terrence Malick. I think it was the second film, movie called Days of Heaven.
I've only heard Terrence Malick. I've heard of, but never heard of that movie.
You've never heard of Days of Heaven?
When did this come out?
It stars Richard Gere. It was 1978 movie. Anyway,
9 years prior to this.
The cinematography of this movie it's some of the best ever. It's just a beautiful visual movie. But the original cinematographer...
One more time, name of the movie.
Days of Heaven.
Days of Heaven.
Yes. And
Terrence Malick.
I watched it on Netflix. It might still be on there. I'm not sure. The original cinematographer was Nestor Almendros. And then the schedule went so far past what was originally...
proposed.
What was originally planned on. And... the cinematographer had to leave, and it was some of like the best cinematography ever. And then the cinematographer Haskell Wexler had to take over. And what's really famous that Haskell Wexler, he's not at the time, he wasn't seen as like a great cinematographer, and he had to come in and try to like copy the other guy's style. And something he did was like he tried so hard not to do it, but he had to use diffusion, and the other guy like hated diffusion. Yeah. So like one of the things that you can do through Days of Heaven, apparently Roger Ebert wrote about this, was that you can just like watch Days of Heaven and know who shot what part of the movie, based upon whether or not there's diffusion in the shot.
Modern day equivalent is people picking apart.
So that's one of those things where like some cinematographers get real uppity about someone using diffusion.
I don't know how notable or critically acclaimed that film is, but
very.
Well, then let's reach a little bit lower. Justice League that just came out. Okay. The difference between the Zack Snyder and the what's his name, Buffy guy,
Joss
Whedon edits, where like it kind of ended up
not
in
the editors, but sure, yeah.
Well, they're their vision for the film. Yes. Yeah. It went from being very colorless and bland, really color-wise, with your Zack Snyder-ish. And I mean, it's a style, very muddy, but it turned orange when Joss Whedon...
Really?
Basically, you can tell, I've heard a lot of people in their descriptions, their critical reviews of Justice League. Yeah, same thing. You can tell when it was a Zack Snyder or Joss Whedon proposal.
You can tell that. Okay. I listened to an interview with the cinematographer, and the cinematographer couldn't be there for the reshoots. So that was another thing. So they had both different directors and different cinematographers. So yeah, the look would probably try to stick with it.
Real Frankenstein of a movie.
Yeah, I haven't seen it though.
I haven't. I'm good.
But I like, I'll defend. I won't defend those movies, but I will defend Zack Snyder for being a very creative, interesting director.
I love 300. There was other stuff too. I really like Watchmen. I haven't seen it for a long time.
That's the only movie of his that I like. I loved Watchmen. I thought it was a fantastic movie.
Rorschach. I love that guy.
It's such a good movie. Man. Anyway, so I'll defend some directors that are not seen as good directors. I will defend Zack Snyder, and I will defend Michael Bay happily. And here's why. And it's just as a director, I will defend them.
Will you defend modern Bay as well? Really?
I like Pain and Gain.
Okay.
Anyway, it's not so much the quality of their movies. When I try to judge like a director, I try to judge like first of all, are they interesting? And not just like normal TV directing, which is like long, medium, close-up shot, kind of like, the actors might walk around each other for a second. And usually they're just standing around, like looking at each other, over the shoulder, random sort of stuff. But with both those directors, they're both very unique. You can tell by watching the movie that it is their movie.
A lot of low angle stepping out of the car shots from
Hell
Bay.
Yeah, dude. And then Zack Snyder's the same way. You can tell it's a Zack Snyder movie. You can just tell by the way they do it. And you know what? They're the ones who do it best, too. So Michael Bay does Michael Bay best. Zack Snyder does Zack Snyder best. Patty Jenkins tried to do Zack Snyder on
what movie?
On Wonder Woman.
Oh, okay.
Now you can watch Monster from 10 years ago, and you can watch Wonder Woman, and you could have told me that they were two different directors, and I would have believed you because they don't feel like a singular voice.
Yeah.
Now I like Wonder Woman a lot. I think they're better than the Zack Snyder movies in that universe, but she's still trying to match Zack Snyder's style.
Yeah, I mean, trying to match the DC Cinematic Universe style.
As far as the style is concerned, it's less interesting. When I try to judge a director on it's like their blocking and camera placement, and whether or not you can tell that it's that director versus any other director. And in that case, I will happily defend Michael Bay, and I will happily defend Zack Snyder because they are unique. They are an artistic voice and vision for whatever it is they're making. Neither of those guys write their movies. So, I think if Michael Bay is given a good script like The Rock, Michael Bay is going to make a great movie. Michael Bay is given a bad script, which has been a lot of his movies, then he's going to make some bad movies. Transformers is a terrible movie, but
I don't mind the first.
Yeah, I would still defend kind of that. I don't know how I got off on this tangent, but
you're good. It's because we don't have much
totally
on the film.
Those guys. I do have some information on the mother.
Okay,
actress.
Go for it, and then I'll get back to Megumi Odaka.
Ayako Wakao. She was born in 1933, and she also won a sort of contest. You might remember this because some of the Godzilla actors went through this program. 1951, she was part of the New Face program at Toho.
We've mentioned it at least once.
And
their star and starlet making process.
Here's the thing. She appeared in over 100 features and was a favorite.
Wow.
She was a favorite actress of a lot of directors, including Ichikawa, who used her many times, Ken Mizoguchi, who used her many times, Yasujiro Ozu. Ozu is probably the most famous Japanese director, at least to the Japanese, it seems to be.
She shows off her range in this movie from where she's completely broken at the beginning, and now she's such a loving, caring mom.
She's not an easy character in the movie, but her performance of the character is really great.
Yeah.
And
really
then
noble woman.
Then the filmmaker Yasuso, I'm sorry guys, Masumura also used her a lot. She has won the Kinema Junpo, which is like a really big film magazine in Japan. Yeah. She's won their Best Actress award many times. But then after she kind of retired from acting, I believe somewhere in the 90s, she ran for Japanese Parliament unsuccessfully. And then,
that is a strong woman. Holy crap!
She ran for it. She didn't get the position. But
I mean, just the fact that she'd make the bid. Wow.
Here's what's odd about this. Her husband, who was an architect, I guess.
Yeah.
He also unsuccessfully ran for Japanese Parliament. So
there's only a few Dutch angles in this movie.
One of us is getting in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a very few Dutch angles. It's kind of like when she has a real connection with the aliens, suddenly we get a Dutch angle. I think there's one at the very end, right before she gets, spoilers, taken back to the moon.
Yeah, Dutch angle's an interesting thing.
But there just aren't many in the film, so when they do come up, it's very notable.
There's not many in most films.
Yeah. Well,
there are some movies that use it like a little too much.
There's an overuse in
Thor.
The first one. That's like the only thing I can remember from the movie.
Yeah, Kenneth Branagh.
Oh, wow. You remember this?
Is the director.
Okay.
He's also a very famous actor, Drew.
Yeah.
Kenneth Branagh, director of Thor. I've seen his other movies. I don't remember him using Dutch angles a bunch.
Just that movie was like, this is a comic book movie. So it's gonna be you're gonna have your head tilted for most of it.
That was an odd choice.
Very odd.
An odd choice. I really liked half of that movie. I really liked half of Thor.
I can't remember when it came out, in connection to Iron Man. But I remember
2011 or something.
Yeah, because now I think they just celebrated the MCU celebrated their decade anniversary. So at this point, it would have been 2008 when. Iron Man came out because I kicked off this
same year as Dark Knight and Tropic Thunder.
See, Tropic Thunder is such a
what was funny was that
not tasteful, hilarious freaking movie.
That summer, it was 2 giant Robert Downey Jr. movies, Tropic Thunder and Iron Man, and he was just on top of the world in 2008.
I just barely read
and you have
something people knocking Tropic Thunder for
Thunder gets better every time I watch it.
It does. So
it does. Funny.
You want to know another underappreciated? If we're going to go off and just tangent real quick, because we will get back to the film. Underappreciated comedies. I just barely watched Dewey Cox. Like Walk Hard.
Oh, I've never seen that one.
It's really funny. I think sadly it gets less funny as the movie goes on, but they pack the beginning of that movie with hilarity, and throughout there's some recurring jokes in that movie. But Dewey Cox, Walk Hard.
See, I think Tropic Thunder may be the last great American comedy movie.
Really?
In my opinion.
When did that
there were a lot of good comedies in that decade.
When did that come out in conjunction with Superbad? Because my gosh, Superbad
was like the year before. I think Superbad was 2007.
Okay. Superbad's freaking
Superbad I'd put up there too.
I've been wanting to talk about this one for a while. Pineapple Express. I love that movie.
It's good, but it's not like...
I would watch that movie on a repeat forever.
Like Superbad does.
I'm not a huge Dave Franco fan, or... James. Sorry, James.
James.
I know, as that came out of my mouth. But James Franco's character in that movie, the best character.
Have you seen 127 Hours?
I haven't seen many James Franco films.
Oh, dude. That movie's
is that
amazing.
the man stuck under the boulder?
Yes.
Cut off his... Okay.
Yes. Hey,
is he the only one in that
Do you have
film?
any idea how big that movie is for the Utah Film Commission? Do you have any idea how much...
Pretty big.
That movie's 8 years old now. And they keep on pumping out 127 Hours was shot here in Utah.
Got to be pretty big then.
They keep on doing that. That movie, Drew. I like James Franco a lot, but he's amazing in that movie. And
I think he's a really strong.
If you're a Utah, Drew, you have to watch 127 Hours. It's like required
that's
viewing.
The thing, Joe. There's two interpretations of your comment there. I am from Utah. Do I consider myself a full... how much of a connection do you have to the place where you came from? I mostly stay inside. I mostly play video games, watch movies. I don't go out much. I don't travel too much. To get to the movie, which is part of staying inside, not connecting with the place where I'm from, I wanted to say each of the noblemen has kind of a color scheme going on. My favorite of the noblemen, because he's just so devilishly confident. He's the broader faced man who's always got a sly smirk, and he never... One thing about people that bugs me, but it works with him, I do not like people who do not open their eyes all the way. When you got a person who goes through life with their eyes half shut, I just want to grab them and open up their eyes.
Wow.
But then this guy,
he problem
pulls
with fat
it off.
Guys, huh?
No, he just...
I feel like my eyes never open all the way just because I'm fat. So I got
No, Joe,
I got fat
you,
eyebrow ridge.
You don't at all. You know a person who does, Dano.
Oh.
His eyes are never fully opened. So I've just learned to accept him as that. But I'll be a dick to the person who I first meet and, hey man, you should, your eyes aren't very open, because it'll bug me until I really get used to it. This guy pulls it off though, because his look, as in his style, is exactly the way those old, the very, very at this point, ancient Japanese drawings look. He looks like he stepped out of a painting. We're getting a recap of the alien explosion now.
Yeah, we're getting part of
alien spacecraft explosion.
One of the 3 big special effects sequences in this movie.
I just barely started watching, and you saw it, Andromeda Strain. So I'm really into aliens right now, really into alien stuff. I also just bought a Bigfoot hat, which is awesome. We'll have to show it to you after this. It's a really sly Bigfoot hat. It's a trucker hat, and off to the side of it is a shadowed the image of Bigfoot, the most famous footage of that they captured him, and he's walking away and turns his full torso back to look at the camera and keeps walking away. You know that? You've seen it,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. It's that silhouette of Bigfoot, with turning to look back. But I'm such a big fan of this stuff, which is the element of this movie that makes me most excited. It's the alien part.
So, the special effects director, Drew.
Yeah.
We know this guy.
This is his last movie.
Yoshi. I never ever say his first name.
Yoshi. I've probably said it wrong a million times as well.
And he did special effects on Godzilla 1984 and 85, so we'll get to that soon. But he is... this was one of his last movies, so it looks like Princess from the Moon and a movie called Tokyo Blackout were the same year, so 1987.
So this one was after that, though.
But he did the special effects on Matango, Pulgasari.
I really wish we could watch Matango as... we got to just watch that one. We're not going to do a podcast on it, but everybody quotes it as like, this is one of sci-fi, Toho, this era greats. Actually, prior to this era. But
Terror of Mechagodzilla.
No big monster in that one.
A few of the Godzilla movies.
Here's the fact you can look up. Okay, Princess from the Moon, the last film for special effects director Teruyoshi Nakano, who served as the director of special effects in most of Toho's tokusatsu productions. Following Eiji Tsuburai's death, Nakano retired from directing following this film at the age of 42. He retired at 42. We began this podcast talking about guys who worked well into their 80s and 90.
He's like, I'm good.
Yeah.
42, I'm good.
I'm just going to live the quiet life after this.
So he was often... He's the guy, as we've been watching these things, that's often credited as assistant special effects director under Tsuburaya.
When he really
did the bulk of the work.
It was like from mid-60s to 70 is when that was the case.
There was another guy whose name I always forget that has a very similar name, but who did it for Abira, I think. But anyway, Nakano is the big one. So Invasion of the Astro Monster, War of the Gargantuas.
He seemed to be the follow-up of Tsuburaya.
King Kong Escape, Son of Godzilla, Destroy All Monsters, Latitude Zero, All Monsters Attack, unfortunately, Space Amoeba. He did a movie called Lake of Dracula. I guess there was a Japanese Dracula movie. That's cool.
Yeah. This that ties in well, Joe, with the fact on the movie, people kept saying that this movie was supposed to be... Here we go. I'll find it. Our kaiju, because we're going to get to him very soon in the movie. Its name is Dragon. Look at this this still. I think it's I don't know if it's a drawing or it's a still, but
that's a drawing.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever see him at night like that.
Well, he's in a storm, but he's a puppet / animatronic, and the reason that it ties in with Dracula is because a popular rumor, here's the quote, and this is off of Wikizilla, popular rumor is the dragon prop from this film, our only big monster in the film, was originally constructed for an unmade Toho and Hammer Films collaboration film called Nessie. Hammer Films being the...
Oh, of course, it's
English,
the Loch Ness Monster, of course!
See, exactly. The second you know that fact, it's like, oh yeah, totally looks like the Loch Ness Monster. With teeth, however, with sharp fangs, so not to my liking for being a huge Loch Ness Monster fan. It's supposed to look more gentle, but actually be like aggressive. You know, like a killer whale, and you don't know how aggressive they are, but they actually are. Anyway, reused by Teruyoshi Nakano for Princess of the Moon. However, so this fact being debunked, given that Nessie was canceled nearly a decade before Princess of the Moon was produced, no mention of this is made in any official Toho books regarding the film.
So that's just a rumor.
The rumor's likely false because, as we already know,
it's been too long. Early on, they like to junk everything.
Well, even if they don't junk them, I mean... A lot of stuff from 60s and 70s, the suits didn't make it, or the animatronics didn't make it too far because I don't think they were made from the highest quality material. They weren't built to last, is all I'm saying.
No, they probably weren't, and they were probably not built to store either. Movies are still that way, by the way. They don't build anything to last.
Yeah, they are. It's just so unfortunate because they're so... They've become so high profile now that it would be tremendous to have things from the era. It's like stuff I know about Star Wars, where I would never say I'm the biggest Star Wars fan, but you just kind of by pop culture osmosis and also even a cursory look into the films, you get the stuff, the facts. Jabba the Hutt, the only things that survive from that original Jabba the Hutt are his eyeballs, because everything else deteriorated. Yeah,
wow,
it's all gone. So if you want stuff from the original Star Wars films, props and whatever, one of the most notable ones would be the huge Jabba the Hutt animatronic. Nothing survived from it, but those, I think they're glass eyes.
They're in the storm right now. I don't think the dragon shows up yet, does he?
He does. This is like the only...
it's the morning after in the mist.
Shot.
That's right.
Where it's above the sea, really, the studio tub, and below it,
how dare you,
Joe, but it's such a freaking cool shot. You get to see the silhouette of this monster going underneath. What I'm reminded of is a Princess Bride, you know, the eels.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's like the same shot. That's a good point. So we finally see our kaiju. We now see the Loch Ness Monster, which they call a dragon.
He looks a lot less menacing in far away shots, which to me, it just works better. It works better when the design of the monster is not necessarily fierce, looks more gentle and like, you know, cutesy. Wow, you can't even see the shot in this. That's horrible. It's such a poor transfer that like in the Criterion cleanup that we see the monster pass its silhouette underneath the ship from like an aerial angle shot. And it's a really, really cool shot. So when we see the monster silhouetted in the fog further away as it lifts its head out, looks more majestic, looks more gentle, cool. And I believe in these extreme close-ups of the monster flailing and thrashing around, that's when we see the fangs. And that's what doesn't do it for me, Joe. I don't want to see these like, they almost look like they were added in after the fact, these fangs.
Yeah, so they shoot this kind of differently. So we're used to in the kaiju canon, we're used to them kind of showing us the whole monster in a very clear sort of way, sometimes in a hokey way, because it's like, that's definitely a dude in a suit. You know, you think of that. Maybe it's the quality of the filmmaker. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if he actually was in charge of shooting this. It could have been Nakano himself. But they kind of keep the style of the movie with all the diffusion, and in this case, they also have fog. Lots of fog.
That's interesting, though. They don't break style even for these shots, which is a totally different feeling from the rest of the movie.
It is. The monster is never seen fully. It's seen in parts.
There's helps with that is that it's an ocean monster. It's kind of always somewhat under the water.
There's a mysterious element to it, and honestly, I think part of it is that the guy who made this, or the people who made this, probably didn't want it to look like a kaiju movie.
What had come
from
prior
10
to
years
this?
Before?
Oh yeah,
they probably were like, let's try to cover this up a little bit and try to make it look a little bit scarier.
I mean, Godzilla made a return 3 years prior to this, but I don't know. They were going for a more cinematic, like we are no longer hokey kaiju. We're no longer campy. This is take us seriously. Come on, guys. That's why, Joe, you mentioned it, and we both noticed it. There's no monster roar. The monster's silent.
Yeah.
They're trying to have a monster in the film without connecting it to the past era of monster movies.
It doesn't just. I think
it's like, this is
it's marked as a kaiju movie on Toho Kingdom, but it's not really it's not a kaiju movie in any way except that there is a giant monster, but the giant monster is shot in a different way. The mood is way different, and once again, there's no roar, there's no monster pornography. You know what I mean? Like, there's no like, you know what I mean? Come on, there's no like. Look at this titillating monster.
Yeah.
Let's take a second and just admire the monster. There's none of that.
Because not Nakano, who's the director or producer of all of these?
Oh.
He's the one that was very against Ibira. Here we are. I'm going to find his name. It is
Tomoyuki
Tanaka.
Sorry,
with there being an extremely sparse amount of information on the background of this film, I doubt that this was his injection into the film. Like, you need a big monster, because I don't know, he'd done that so many times before. But actually, I'm going to say absolutely no, because it's not shown off in any posters or any promotional art I've seen of the movie. The draw on your posters is the beauty, Kaya, and the UFO. Yep, there's a big UFO in this movie. That's the, it doesn't, Joe, a phrase that you should use with caution, jumping the shark. I don't think that moment occurs when the UFO shows up. It occurs when aliens appear for just a brief shot. I was hoping it would happen because I want to see little spacemen, and they give us little spacemen. They're like Disney-like characters. They're very cute.
It reminds me of the ending of this movie, which we're not I think we're getting closer to, but we're not quite there yet.
We're probably 3/4 at this point. If not 2/3.
The ending of this movie reminded me a lot, and I think it was almost on purpose. It reminded me a lot of Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
I own that on
which is 10 years
Blu-ray
before this movie.
Yeah, that's the Spielberg.
Yeah, Spielberg.
Okay.
That one.
Still haven't watched it. But.
What?
Joe,
man, you have got to watch that movie. It's great.
When you do a podcast on movies, when you have a podcast, every single day, my fiance and I watch a movie. Some days, I would like last Wednesday, I watched 4 movies in a day.
How do you not
unintentionally?
How do you not get Close Encounters done?
I don't know. It's in the it's on the list. I don't have a list because I don't believe in lists.
So many great parts of Close Encounters, man. You gotta watch that movie. Anyway, the ending sequence is very similar.
Okay.
All the way up to the ship and like kind of how the ship is shot as well. Like there's a lot of Close Encounters influence on this movie.
Man, it feels so. We're definitely solidly effects wise past the last era of Toho Kaiju films because like it's another level. The effects.
Yeah.
We
went from Terror of Mechagodzilla to Godzilla 1984, which has really great effects.
Not only cinematography wise,
and then like, this movie has really
movie making
stuff.
tech, but special effects are just better. God, I'm so glad we're in another era. A different feeling from each movie. You feel more like this is going to sound bad, but like a human watching the movies because it's like I'm not watching something that is so disconnected from me, like that is far, far back in time. When I watch the Showa era movies, I'm like, I was not even close to being born. It's well before me. Those movies are only getting older, and it just, when you're watching, it's like I have a huge disconnect. Something from the 80s and 90s, which I was born in 91, I still feel like a connection to where it's like, hey, I was born close to or around this time, so like, I'm getting as old as the movies, you know? Basically, technology was at that point when I entered the world. I feel much more of a connection to that. When I'm looking at something, because old people will always be old to you, no matter how old you get. That's how these movies are, Joe. When you watch a movie that's 20 years prior to your time, it's like, oh, that's an old movie. Even if you love it, even if it's your favorite movie, which Night of the Living Dead is mine, and that's like 60s, I want to say. It'll always be that is an old movie. When it's a movie closer to when you're born, you don't want to concede that you're old, Joe. So, you know, they just hold up better. There's always that little bit of a bias.
I don't know, Drew. I grew up on old movies, so I don't really like get that kind of disconnect.
It's also the progression of effects where, Joe, how much better have effects gotten from the 80s till now? Are they? I'm just saying modern day effects are still very reminiscent of these effects. When you go back to like the 70s, even our modern day ones have surpassed them leaps and bounds. But like nowadays, at least miniature wise, like the UFO in this film, I don't think we're ever going to do better miniatures than that.
Well, it wasn't until,
as much anymore.
Honestly, Drew, it wasn't until Jurassic Park where a movie could sell itself based upon its effects.
What year was that?
93.
Okay.
So previous to that, they did have special effect pictures, but they were usually war movies and stuff like that with a lot of explosions and stuff. But that wasn't the thing that pushed audiences to go. Audiences went either because of the star or because of the story or the quality of the movie.
Yeah, or the director.
or it was based on a famous play or a famous book or something like that.
Adaptation.
So they went for different reasons. Now it seems like, or at least for a time in the 90s up until the superhero movies started taking off, it seemed like the thing that would draw people in is like, oh, the special effects are now even better. So like Titanic special effects are way better than anything that came before it. So let's all go see Titanic.
Yeah.
Or at least that's one of the reasons to go see Titanic. And that's definitely one of the things that the marketing department used to sell the movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So the quality of special effects going up is exactly equal to how much the effects matter to the marketing of the movie.
Yeah, we were just talking about that with...
We did just watch a bunch of kaiju movies, and in that case, it's the monsters and the funness of the monsters, and that's what's selling those movies. So they are special effects heavy, but at the same time, it's not like, ooh, this one outdid the other one.
Maybe that's it, because it's an interesting discussion. Funness versus...
King Kong would actually be a really early example of a movie that was probably sold by its special effects. But it's also a really good movie.
Showa era movies, funness versus reality, whereas in these 80s, 90s, it starts here. The funness of the effects are married to the reality of the film. They don't take me out as much. I feel more like, man, there's not as much of a hard cut feeling between the effects scenes and the like character human scenes. It's not like, oh, here now hard cut to monster battle, people in suits. Even if it was still a person in the suits, we're starting to get animatronics in, which as bulky as they might be in the 80s, they're there. Whereas there was not real. The animatronics would have been like in the jaw of Godzilla, period. Yeah. And other than that,
yeah, they're less complex and
much less because they couldn't do it. Then you get 84, which we'll get into, and it's extremely complex.
Animatronic stuff in the 90s was real great. And
yeah.
Animatronic stuff now is really great. There's just less
people don't use it as much. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can, in terms of effects, I guess I can see what you're doing. There is a difference in tone with older movies. There's a difference in, especially you're watching older Japanese movies. So there's another cultural disconnect.
Totally different connection. So. Where does that stem from? Why is that so?
Just presentism is really all that is. So you're just so used to you're so used to watching newer movies. I had a roommate that I wanted to punch in the face because he wouldn't watch anything. He wouldn't watch something from 1970s.
Who was that?
My roommate Cody, who was a nightmare. He wouldn't watch A Clockwork Orange because it was old to him, and I was like,
and there I'm watching. It's definitely solidly 70s Andromeda Strain. Just super heady. Like, it's not even that, it's not action-packed at all. Just people slowly doing scientific research on, like, an alien entity. It's great.
Yeah.
I can definitely watch that because that's what interests me.
Anyway, I don't see it as much. I get a joy out of watching old movies. And to me, it's just like, the way movies have been made, the way movies have been written. They started out kind of like plays, and then they've slowly became their own art form.
Yes.
In the writing department.
Yeah.
And in the acting, the styles of acting have changed. They started changing in the 50s, and so we get the more modern style acting kind of past then, and at least in American cinema. And so you kind of get, I like exploring even the really old stuff. There's still like an essence of humanity, an essence of storytelling throughout all of it that I think, at least with a great movie, can pull in anyone no matter when it was from.
Definitely.
So, but, maybe the mediocre and bad ones are... maybe there's more of a disconnect there. I don't know.
Also, we're dealing with, when we're talking about the, I guess, presentism of sci-fi, it becomes so much easier to be like... So
sci-fi is way different than it used to be, though.
Very much so.
I watch a lot of dramas, Drew. So maybe it's just like
because I
don't watch a ton of sci-fi.
I'm not a drama fan, so you take I've watched a lot more sci-fi, and you take the sci-fi of 70s and prior, and past the 70s, there is like such a hard wall of realism from one to the other. You have a person in a monster suit, or some superimposed giant monster, or even basically any sort of effects prior to maybe 60s, 70s. It does not hold up like anything past that. The second... Really, we mentioned animatronics. The second you get realistic animatronics, man, it's such a world of difference.
A huge part of that is Star Wars and Jaws. Huge. Star Wars, Jaws, and Rocky really changed the movie landscape. When you look
even the littlest into Jaws and what happened with like Bruce, it's amazing that they pulled off and Bruce being the nickname of the shark in the movie behind the scenes. What they pulled off with that thing not working, like hardly working at all. It broke down so much, but they still pulled off all the shots that were necessary to make the action and drama of that horror movie.
Yeah. Here's the thing, Drew. Yeah. The best movies of the 70s are not the effects movies. The best movies of the 70s are like The Godfather. And actually, Apocalypse Now is kind of an effects movie.
When did Scarface come out?
That was 70s, yeah.
70s, okay.
Yeah, so here's what happened. The Hays Code era, which was from the mid-30s to the late 60s, they were all the major studios were all in agreement that they had
clean.
They had a sort of self-censorship program, and you couldn't have. There was a big, code that you couldn't break, and there was a lot of movies that like got real close, like a lot of Billy Wilder movies, and so those movies are especially fun to watch to like see like just what they could get away with back then. Would that have
been like Sunset Boulevard, or I don't know if that would be.
You'll see a line 1968, and just bam, all the really
these exploitation
dark
films and
slightly exploitation. The exploitation stuff like did blow up at the same time too, but you'll see like suddenly the human dramas just became real dark. So like the 70s
of darkness,
the late 60s and early 70s up to mid 70s movies, the dramas, man, they are fantastic.
I'm sure that really affected the psyche of the people on drugs. You're watching these movies and it's already dark, and then you have it enhanced by the modern.
So the hippie era was dying.
My God,
the Nixon
this is a trip, man.
The whole thing with Nixon and corruption and the government, and then all these movies coming out in response to those things, all at the same time. I'm telling you, Drew. I mean, maybe not the special effects pictures from back then, but the big movies back then, better than anything.
When did Taxi Driver?
That was 70s, yeah.
Okay, oh God,
that's one of those. That's one of those like bam movies.
Oh, like those pinnacle. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Travis Scott, I think is his name. My goodness, I love that movie so much.
I watched that movie like a month and a half ago.
I keep waiting to buy that film because I see it for cheap on like Blu-ray, and I'm like, yeah, but is it the one that's like has all the special features? I want to buy like the definitive one because God, I'm so jealous.
It's like a booklet.
And all the behind the scenes stuff.
It's really. Yeah, so that's just one of those movies where it's just like it's really dark, and like people now, filmmakers now, I think are always like going, I want to go back to the 70s when the big movies were the big, dark, important adult dramas, and now the big movies are kind of like. I mean, I still love them in their own way, but they are the big candy movies.
Oh, yeah.
And it became that way because of Jaws and Star Wars. So you can actually blame the reason why we have so many crappy movies because of some really good movies.
Well, there's always going to be like...
There's always going to be
the one that ushers in the era, and then everything else behind that just doesn't quite live up to.
Yeah.
Many don't.
Yeah.
Joe.
This movie's still going, Drew.
It is still going. So the noblemen who... were set to these impossible tasks are now exiled. They were found out to be scammers. They went off to do these things. One had to find like a golden fleece. One of them, I think, might have
made a mistake.
Both of them.
The other one was definitely a scammer.
No, the other one,
the one who made the fake tree, or was it the tree or the fleece guy knew that it wasn't real?
But they were both found out to be hoaxes,
be fakes. Yeah.
And here, I think these noblemen who have been exiled. They send out assassins to take out the third, the one with the true intentions of love. The
one who actually went to go get the dragon dealio.
Yeah, he was the one who went out to sea, and that, Joe, we didn't even mention the money shot of that effect sequence. The money shot when Joe, it's not
okay.
Not always used in that sense.
No, I'm not.
You just had this look on your face, but the monster itself crashes into the ship he was on and sinks it. Like the monster, when you think Loch Ness Monster has a big long neck, and it took its long neck and like landed itself on top of the ship, submerging and breaking apart the ship. So he survived, and a foreign land, picked him up. Foreigners picked him up and brought him back to Japan. He's looking a little different. His hair's down. The second he makes landfall, these foreigners, leave. And he is skilled enough to take down all of these assassins.
That's right.
Some of them run away.
This is a super cliche. So like the emperor or the super high class guy who is also an amazing warrior.
Yeah, exactly. The chosen one.
Yeah. So
he's fueled by love, Joe. He can't be stopped.
My favorite. Actually, the first time I watched Gladiator.
Yeah.
I was like, I noticed a thing right off the bat. I was like, oh, he's going to have to go fight that guy. Because at the beginning of the movie, or like after the big battle takes place and like they're at the campsite, and then Joaquin Phoenix's character is just practicing sword fighting, and he's amazing at it. For like a 2-second shot, I'm like, oh, that's a setup for something. And it's just like, why would he be amazing at fighting? He's not in the ring.
Noble dynasties from days long past, class systems around the world. It's that in their portrayals, both in story and film, like written story and film, because of the wealth that they amass, their parents had them trained in all things. They were taught from the greatest books, so they're educated and they're fighters and they're everything. It's just that when it's romanticized, suddenly they are the best at everything. They not only got this wealth of education, knowledge, physical expertise in sword fighting here and some sort of self-defense from wherever they are around the world, but that they are like better at it than anyone else all of a sudden. It's not like
they're not letting them win.
It could have been a psychological effect, Joe, because you're a poor person going up against this noble person. You know, you falter in your swordsmanship.
So that was always like, that was the most shoehorned
it's a cliche.
in. It was the most shoehorned in setup. This one didn't even have the setup. He just came onto the shore and like, oh yeah, he's also an amazing sword fighter.
I mean, exactly. not shown to do. It's just, a lot of this film is just talking.
Yeah.
And it's a drama.
This is when the Emperor comes back and he does say he didn't make it, right?
Yeah, his conceit is that he didn't find the Dragon Stone, but he still loves her. He survived. He comes back in shame, but because of that, he's real helpful to the family.
But at least he was honest, and the other two were not honest.
So, no, exactly.
Yeah.
The mother has done something at this point, the mother of Kaya, the pseudo-mother. She threw that little orb into like a river and it floated to the bottom. Her connection, the Princess from the Moon's connection to the orb, is like so strong that she starts dying because this orb was thrown away. The mom had good intentions in doing that. She just wanted her daughter to be like normal and well again. And so this prince or whatever, noble person, he dives to the bottom of the ocean.
And goes and gets it back.
Prior to that, Joe, because he'd been so like nobled up in his costuming and everything, I didn't see him as a good looking fella like at all. And then he's only wearing like some pants and his long hair is up, and it's like once he shows off his physique and you can actually see his features, I'm like, that's a good looking guy. You know, diving into the ocean. Prior to that, he's got such an elaborate costume. I didn't even notice him at all.
I got a little bit. Okay, so something in this movie, at the beginning of the movie, this guy he's not a nice guy. You talked about this earlier. He's kind of a jerk. And by this time, we kind of like him. And I'll tell you why we like him is because he came and he got the ball. So that's one thing that he did that was like good and kind of redeemed him. And number two, he's got to tell her the truth about, he didn't actually get the
he's
Dragon Ball
truthful, he's honest. It seems like when somebody survives an act of like, it seemed like destiny that he survived the drowning of his crew. Like he was the only survivor from that shipwreck, which again, when we're talking about noble person's cliche, it's not only a great swordsman, but like it's got to be a divine thing that he survived that. So, it helps our got to be a good guy, because why else was he spared?
Yeah, we have some sort of sympathy for him, and then maybe some empathy. That's actually a common thing. So there's a famous, really crappy screenwriting book out called Save the Cat, and that's its big thing. To save the cat is his idea that in the first act of a movie, in order to become attached to a person, to become attached to a character, that you would have your character do something noble, like saving a cat out of a tree. And then suddenly the rest of the movie, you're going to be on that guy's side no matter what he goes through.
The very first like shots of the film, when the spy grabs the old woman out from the cart.
And then he's a good guy.
We haven't mentioned him, but that's the connection with the Emperor and all the goings on with Kaya, because really not even the Emperor, it's annoying the Emperor that he can't figure out what's going on, why this bamboo cutter has become so wealthy, where he's getting it from. The Emperor's like, I need that gold for myself. That's what they ultimately figure out from the spy that's spying on the bamboo cutter, going back to the Emperor, is that he somehow has a source of gold that he's slowly selling off, so people aren't really aware of they don't know where the wealth came from.
Right. And then when, of course, the spy tells him what's going on, he gets kicked out because they don't believe what he was saying.
Yeah, he's like, she's from the moon. Yeah. The Emperor's like, you make a fool of me. Get out of here. You're exiled from Japan. But we follow him, and you're right. So he does a saving the cat from the tree by saving that woman from getting stampeded on, and after that, I mean, it's not that Mifune's character's a bad guy, but it's like he's shaded more gray, dark gray than white, because he's kind of controlling a little bit. I think he just wants what's best for his daughter and his wife, his family, but he's sort of heavy-handed about it.
Yeah.
And that spy is able to, although I think that's why they had to do it. That he's a good guy. They had to show us right from the bat that he's a good guy, because otherwise we always associate spies.
We wouldn't be trusting him.
Yeah, he's a spy. He must be like nefarious, but no, he's like the best character of the film. Every shot of that guy, he looks so like innocent. That's the look that comes across his face. Just like how Kaya looks oblivious constantly. She's constantly has this like look on her face, like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's happening either on Earth or with the moon people, because she's caught between worlds. Her memories are super vague of her moon world. Basically, what's coming back to her is she was a fully formed, like, probably adult alien thing.
Dang.
And then when she escaped from the escape pod, she like metamorphosized into another being that ended up looking like the daughter of a, to speak about this sci-fi like it's a normal thing, and trying to make heads or tails of it, metamorphosized into another being that looked like their daughter, and she's trying to learn Earth culture, kind of. She's mostly just secluded away by the parents and of her own doing. It's like, where is she? She doesn't know much about where she's from, and she doesn't know much about where she's at now. So it seems like she's always being acted upon, and it's kind of hard for me to sympathize and get into that character, because she never, aside from sending them off on their journeys, she's always being acted upon. Like, the only real decision she makes in the film, because everyone's just, I want her, and kind of more as an object than a human. Both her parents and the noblemen always just want her in their lives. The one true conscious act she makes is, I want to go back home. She's like, I have to do that. That's her driving force in the movie. She's just a very hard character to like get into.
She's a hard character to sink your teeth into. I get that. Tale of Princess Kaguya, I think, does a better job at the same story, where she's a lot more of a character. She's got more.
What I'm interested in is, does time pass in that as she grows up, or is there this sudden?
She grows up really quick. It's the same thing.
It happens again.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think that happened in the story, at least as I was reading the written
I think
tale.
It does, but
okay,
maybe not. But I think it does. Here we're in the third act, Drew. The moon is going to go full.
Act of the
Everybody's going to try to stop this alien ship that they've been told is going to come down at the
because the Emperor says, "Don't worry." Well, it's now,
and then everybody just kind of looks at the alien ship, and then she's taken away.
It's because it's actually a great effect shot when all the guards of the Emperor shoot arrows up at the UFO, thinking that's going to do anything, because it's just like in I'm real big into UFOs, people. When you see medieval drawings of these great, like, just basically look up Chariots of Fire, any sort of medieval depiction of strange happenings in the sky, how does your mind, and then it's in the Bible too, how does your mind comprehend alien technology that's far into the future from our current technology? Like, we can describe it somewhat, having our current grasp of what technology is, that we have things that fly, planes, helicopters, and etc. But back before flight was achieved by mankind, how do you describe anything that's floating around, flying in the sky? It's fire in the sky, and it ends up being it's real hard for a person to grasp when your highest technology at the time might be like fire, or having like a roof over your head. It's a real rudimentary science compared to... So they're shooting arrows at a UFO because they have no idea what technology is, and the arrows light on fire.
What the heck this is at all, except that it's gonna...
That's why the Emperor has so much confidence in, it doesn't matter if they're coming down from the moon. We'll be able to fend them off.
We'll be able to stop them.
This giant super technology UFO comes down, and they're riding horses. Nope, not gonna.
This is the part where it really shows off like just how much special effects have improved. We had other special effects sequences. Certainly the monster sequence was pretty good.
Yeah.
We've seen better monster sequences from the monster movies, but it's pretty good, and the way it was shot was interesting and stuff like that. That kind of covered up any...
I'd say unique.
Covered up any sort of problems with it. But then we really get, and we get a light show earlier with Toshiro Mifune's house shaking and stuff like that.
And that's like a shot. But
and then when she gets the flashback of like the ship landing and the explosion stuff, that part's really well done. But this is the Close Encounters crazy effects.
This is when
section.
Prior to this, it had been alluded that this was a sci-fi movie. Like really little nudges here and there, we got some sci-fi.
Mostly the name of the movie.
Full blown. Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about in the movie itself, we have not yet been exposed to some insane science fiction. Third act of the film. And also, aside from the couple of shots with the dragon destroying the ship, it's not like these effects are complex prior to this. A little girl with some blue lenses, put into her eyes, blue contacts. Just real simple effects. Then this one comes, and suddenly, boom. I mentioned that Megumi Odaka. She won a Rookie of the Year for her performance in this movie. The other two awards for the film were Art Direction. It was nominated for Japanese Academy Award, like the best film nominee. It was a nominee for the best film in 1988, but the three that it won
a special award for the effects as well.
Art direction,
Nakano, and direction. So I have the list right here.
Yeah.
Newcomer of the Year, best art direction, like you said, and then also the special award for
and that's
Teruyoshi.
How great
Nakano.
Is that? He won that, and this was his last film.
Yeah,
great.
Maybe he was like, I'm done.
Sure. He's like,
look,
I'm going out on a high note.
It was nominated for the Japanese Academy Awards for Best Film.
Mifune got nominated for Best Supporting Actor.
Oh, very cool. Editing as well, lighting.
It was nominated for like everything. It's because it was the Toho anniversary.
Score.
It was the 55th
the score in this movie is very good.
Yeah.
We have to watch these movies silent, so maybe we're just not reminded of that. But the score is also very good.
When you think of,
except for maybe that's,
I want to say an Oscar bait movie. This was like a Japanese Academy bait movie.
You think so?
Yeah, because I mean, when an Oscar bait movie comes out that so obviously like fits into what Oscar winners are year after year, they end up getting nominated for everything, even when it's like, I think it was sound design for what was the movie that won last year, but Moonlight actually won? La La Land. Even though people had qualms with the sound design in that film, I guess something about the audio versus the music wasn't like quite the best. Little nitpicks of when an otherwise good film, it gets nominations across the board, whether it wins them or not. That's what it's kind of seeming like with this film. It just gets nominated for everything. I'm just trying to stretch you out.
Drew's touching my elbow.
Yeah, Joe and I are
getting real close.
Physical.
I like La La Land a lot. Oh, now we get our spaceship.
Joe, this is by far my favorite part of the movie, because prior to this, I mean, it's a slow drama, lots of talking, lots of human emotion, some love, romance. It was starting to get boring for me, and then this part happened, and I'm like, this is great. I love it. I was just like cheering it on, and I wanted to see some aliens. It would have been tragic for me if we wouldn't have seen aliens, and it's only at like a really short shot where she's floating up to the ship. So bright.
Yeah, the effects on the ship are really amazing.
It's an extremely detailed, large miniature. Man, the LED, because you can only make LEDs so small.
Do you think those were LEDs? I bet they were straight up like tungsten.
Oh, probably.
Lights.
God,
yeah.
Then that means that miniature has to be much bigger than. Because if you have a filament versus a tiny little LED,
I don't know if they had LEDs in the late 80s. I don't know if they were.
I don't know LED technology.
Crap. Yeah, I don't. I know LED is being used in film a lot now, but that's like honestly like a last 5 years sort of a thing.
Oh, okay.
They've been starting to switch over to LED
You're
lights.
Probably right. I was picturing, because you can't tell the size of the miniature, and certain miniatures are not so small. It's just the term miniature that you use. but the detail on this ship is just fantastic because it does really, I mean, not starting with Star Wars, but there's a film, I believe, it has to be prior to Star Wars, called Silent Running, where science fiction, really gratuitous shots of ships where you slowly pan across it, and the detailing on the ships is like your art director, your special effects people in the art department went all out on these details. Like, just, they would have been gorgeous large miniatures because of the panning shot of in space slowly going by. I think that Alien, the original one, has a shot like that to you've all seen Star Wars, so you know the shot, how they start off with the ship, the Imperial Destroyer.
I mean, the opening shot of Star Wars?
Exactly. Yeah. And that kind of a shot, you get to see all the details on this miniature, and also this sound design where it's like...
what about the Spaceballs?
The ship going by. Oh, yeah.
Spaceballs opening.
It goes for forever. The brilliance of... oh, my God. What's his name? Joe? Young Frank and Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks. He just... Oh, man. We're all over the place with this podcast, great. But because we don't know much on the film,
it goes on for like 20 minutes.
The brilliance of Mel Brooks.
Oh boy! I was gonna say something now. I just totally lost it. Anyway,
some animated. Okay, the thing about the ship is they come
self-defense systems.
Yeah, they come and see. There you go. It was a zoom on Kaya that turned into a Dutch
zoom,
angle.
Tilt, Dutch angle move. It's crazy shot.
Yeah,
I love it.
I am in a film. I'm in a movie. Like, the point of that shot is not to be immersed in the film. It's to like...
It looks like something out of Evil Dead just all of a sudden.
You're right.
That's a very Sam Raimi looking shot where the push forward and then the move into the Dutch angle.
Do you think they put it on a motorcycle for that? No, they couldn't have turned it.
Oh, man. So this is where she's like, I have to leave now.
And I want to say they are...
And no one touches each other in this movie.
That's true. Yes, that's another... heightened realism because you're right. Well, and it also could have just been the time,
and it could
because everyone is extremely
Japanese
proper,
culture. Maybe not so much of the touchy feely.
Yeah, I mean even nowadays.
I noticed it a lot in their movies, like American movies, French movies. Like a lot of people just touch each other.
It's so proper,
a lot of hugging,
like extremely. Polite etiquette.
Japanese movies, like to get two people to touch each other, it's like
you're
waiting the whole movie for them just to hug. Like they don't even kiss. Like if you're watching a Japanese like romantic comedy or romantic movie, like the amount of physical touch is so little.
Yeah,
like that's where like the tension comes from.
Yeah, and
like, please God, just kiss.
When there's a strong. You're holding out on me here.
It's different than even like proper British movies or whatever. It's you're just like, oh my gosh, just do it.
When you point that out, I think that's one reason again why I gush on and on about Mifune, why it's such a strong contrast to everyone else, because
he is unusual.
He blows up when it comes to emotion.
He is a very physical, huge presence.
It's like when everyone else is this calm lake of emotion, he's a freaking volcano.
Yep.
Just like,
and he's like that in most of the movies he's in. He is the one.
So since we're never going to get another opportunity to discuss this story, this adaptation tale of the Bamboo Cutter, we just mentioned volcano. I think probably the most interesting thing about that story is the ending of it. Okay, differences go because we're at that point in both the movie and the story. Parents are very sad that Princess Kaguya is gone. This is what in the written tale happens. I'm just going to read this real quick. Kaya leaves some things back on the earth in this old story. This is an officer of the Emperor, returned to the Emperor with items that Kaguya had given him as her last mortal act, reported what happened. The Emperor read her letter and became overcome with sadness, because there's more of a connection in the story between the princess and the Emperor. He asks his servants which mountain is the closest to heaven, because he's really mourning the loss of this beautiful... And it's not only that she's beautiful, she's wise and like aloof, so she got a presence. Which mountain is the closest to heaven, which is where she went up to, the moon? They replied, the great mountain of the Suruga province. You don't know what mountain that is yet, but The emperor ordered his men to take this letter that she gave him to the summit of the mountain and burn it, and hope that the message would reach the distant princess. The men were commanded to burn the elixir of mortality, another gift which she gave to the emperor. Since the emperor did not wish to live forever without being able to see her, he actually loved her. The legend has it that the word immortality, Fushi, became the name of the mountain, Mount Fuji.
Mount Fuji. Wow.
It's also said that the kanji for the mountain, literally mountain abounding with warriors, this is the kanji for Mount Fuji, derived from the emperor's army ascending the slopes of the mountain to carry out his order. Said that the smoke from the burning still rises to this day. In the past, Mount Fuji was much more volcanically active and therefore produced more smoke. So,
very cool.
It's feudal Japan taking fairy tales, which were folk tales taken in more seriousness back then, and then where they're revered nowadays, not taken as seriously, but they use these folk stories to explain natural phenomenons around them. And also, it's kind of like, what's the name of that mountain? Well, here's the story behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's the tale of the bamboo cutter.
There's a similar one around here. There's a mountain called Mount Timpanogos, and there's like a big, what's said to be, I don't actually know if that's true, but what's said to be is like some Native American tale about a woman and her lost lover, and the mountain is the shape of the woman laying down.
I can see that on the mountain range, and I've heard that.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a few. Yeah, that's like a common.
Here we are, Joe.
Folktale. Like, why does this mountain exist?
Disney aliens.
Okay, the aliens.
They're extremely Japanese-like. They're very cutesy, and they're. Okay, you can't see them at all in this transfer.
No. They're like little...
It was so
they're just
washed
little fairies.
out. But they're extremely washed out here and glowing.
Very odd alien...
they use little flower. They give her a flower. She's going to transform into one of them because that's her true form. My goodness, this movie goes off the rails. Okay, the UFO coming down to feudal Japan to pick up Kaya... Not the jump the shark moment. The moment it shows you the little mini aliens that are like, how do I describe them? They're like robotic, I'm sure they're biological, but they look like see-through. They have little cloaks. They're teeny tiny compared to humans, and they have Mickey Mouse ears, and they have little eyes that you would see on like the LED display that's supposed to be a face on a Japanese robot nowadays. If there's a Japanese human-like robot that's supposed to display emotion, it would have little LEDs like that change to just be like, it's angry, it's happy, it's sad.
They are unusual.
That's the face you get on it.
I definitely wasn't ready for them.
I was expecting it to happen. I was hoping, and when it did, I was not disappointed.
Here we go again with the ship, though. I did look up LEDs. Looks like they became... Like they came into full form in like the mid 90s. So I don't think they're LEDs.
That blows me away then that those are all like, because that's going to produce a lot more.
They could be.
Heat.
They had low light LEDs from the 60s, but it seemed like they weren't like there. Since 2014 is when they've started becoming a big deal.
Yeah, because I think it was 2014ish when like certainly not.
I remember when flashlights started coming out when we were in high school. They're like LED flashlights, dude.
The kind that if you look into them, your eyesight is gone for a minute.
Yeah.
Too bright. It's too bright.
Someone won like a Nobel Prize or something off of the technology, too.
Yeah, I mean, they're so used. Most street lamps nowadays are LED.
So I doubt those are LED lights. There's some sort of tungsten light or of some kind.
That's crazy because the amount of heat emitted from that.
And LED, yeah, and the way that they're using dimmers and stuff, it would have to be... I don't think LEDs could use dimmers until very recently, so...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think LEDs can use dimmers at all, actually.
No,
I think LEDs
it's either on or off.
Yeah. So it would have to be a different type of light. God, that's real light nerdy. I'm sure that someone might know a lot more and might be like... Just like freaking out at home,
Did you ever take...
gaffers...
The
electrician at home is real pissed off right now.
The 0.2% of the listening audience that know anything about lighting.
I had to take classes on that crap. I can't remember much of it, but there's certain lights that can dim, certain lights that can't.
I like that if you took this story at face value as if this really happened in this folktale, because all these feudal Japanese people are... the emperor and his like higher ups are standing there watching it. If they took this real event, if this movie really happened and they passed it on to generations, how it gets molded and changed to be the story that we know today. Because it's like, where did this folktale come from, Tale of the Bamboo Cutter, and what really happened? And if this really happened, my goodness.
Well, Drew, the aliens are all coming down for us then. That's right.
Oh, this shot, Joe, I had forgotten. The ship has come down, and it looked like a regular UFO. Then it flips itself upside down. It's a huge flower. What a shot, Joe. I don't think we're going to be able to see it as well in this. You can kind of tell what it is.
Yeah, you can kind of tell it's a flower.
And the cleaned up Criterion version, it's amazing, the difference.
It's okay, Drew. We're giving away this DVD. We don't need this anymore.
No.
Someone else can enjoy it.
I'm glad that we're giving away good movies.
Yeah.
We're giving away ones we appreciate.
Yeah, at least appreciate. That's right.
It's not going to be one that I'll revisit, but it was a...
So, okay, yeah. So I think we're at the end of the movie now. We can talk about if we liked it or not.
Acting,
kind of already did.
Good. But. Score, good. Overall, good.
Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good movie. It's got some problems. It has similar problems, I think, to me as as Three Treasures did, where there is a part of the movie that it just kind of like
there's just nothing
drags a little bit because kind of the big conflict sort of stops. But from all the technical angles and the performance angles, it's a really great achievement. And, we watch a lot of movies that aren't great achievements in those categories. So it is kind of refreshing in that way to see that. So it definitely tried to be like a really great film, but it does have some,
Joe,
does have
the song
problems.
that starts immediately at the credits.
You
can just
theme song at the end should be gone.
As it dates it.
Yeah.
As the spaceship flies off into the moon, that final effect shot, shut it off. Stop it. Pause it. Do not listen to the credits. You get a Phil Collins or a Phil Collins
super
wannabe.
80s. Super 80s.
I still haven't seen to the end of Heathers, but the second that you put a song at the credits that is just so synth heavy and drum machine, like when drum machines came out, they took over the world and like pop culture radio.
Drew, don't even remind me.
But that's what I'm saying is all of a sudden it's dated beyond belief because early drum machines have a certain tone that you're like, whoa, it's harsh.
All modern soundtracks to movies always age poorly.
Yeah.
Anytime you use modern computer technology or synthesizer technology to make a score for a movie, you will immediately date the movie. It like listening to the first Terminator. I know it is iconic, but it is. You could tell me without knowing. If you play that soundtrack, you would know the month and the day.
I wasn't born yet I know the year
that score came out, and it's something that bugs me in all movies. So like anytime a movie has a really synthy score, sometimes it can still be great, but sometimes it's cheesy.
It's just that Phil Collins was so of his era and so much like...
I don't even know if it is Phil Collins, but it's someone who sounds like Phil Collins.
Tons like him. I wouldn't be surprised.
And I'm sure a Phil Collins fan right now is just like, he's also like... he wants to kill us. Unsubscribe.
I'm not saying that I didn't like it. It's just that dates it.
It is something that bugs me.
I like the final shots in the credits. If you can just mute it because it's all bamboo forest shots.
Yes,
really pretty.
Nice. Really nice bamboo.
If they would have just went with orchestrated something,
I know,
a lot calmer rather than this like pop ballad. It's weird because nothing else. It's like all of a sudden you're taken out of this adaptation of a feudal Japanese story that's like so elegant and it's like pop song. Where did this come from?
80s had the big synth thing. 90s had the
grunt.
A lot of drums.
It's just a lot of. You haven't watched what is it called? Sound City, the Dave Grohl directed.
I have watched that.
Gosh, love it. But that was like the last breaths of because like prior to this synth come to is it called Pro Tools?
Yeah.
And Pro Tools and drum machines, when that first hit the scene, it's like, boom, this is the future. In the 90s had these vestiges of artists and recording engineers that were like, nope, we're still going old-timey, like analog, real physical recordings. So that's like the last gasps of that. And that's why some of that 90s stuff if they recorded it on analog, it sounds so freaking clean, because at that point, it's like the producing engineers had mastered the technique of that, and what they were just barely starting to get a grasp of was the Pro Tools and synth drumming, and like being able to dice up and chop, take the parts of a recording of like a guitarist or bassist or vocalist and mesh it all together. So like they were beginning that, so they weren't like, they were beginners with that technology, and yet they had mastered the old style. It sounds great. I'm thinking Smashing Pumpkins.
There's
I'm thinking
more of a
Nirvana.
There's more of a
Nevermind
tactile
album.
feel to it, certainly. The problem with music, I think, since early 2000s, they started using Pro Tools a lot, and then and now, of course, it's like deep in. But now they do like things like drum correction and stuff, which will make a song sound too perfect that it's not interesting anymore.
Yeah.
And you can tell when that is being played versus when they recorded something live. There's just something that you can't really. There's some tactile thing you don't get, the little human flaws, I guess, the microscopic flaws.
Well, and they've done studies. There's a preference in the like. So if it's adjusted to be just the right beat pattern, just the right tempo, people subconsciously like it less than if it was like a drummer making slight mistakes. I'm talking about like 1/16th like beat patterns off, just like barely off, but those just slightly offness is more appealing to the human ear.
It is. It is. I can also tell when something's being auto-tuned, which is why I can't stand that freaking Disturbed Sound of Silence cover, because that is just auto-tuned to hell. And I have had to defend my opinion on that song, that version of that song being horrible for years now on my other podcasts, because I really honestly think it sounds terrible.
If you're listening to any song with any sort of like conscious, is this auto-tuned in any way? You can tell.
It is.
Not that song, but like any song. Can this singer actually... Is this artist? Because there's no way in heck I could tell if and then of course an instrument was auto-tuned.
There's the terrible Kanye West auto-tune where it's just like I don't know. He doesn't even sing. You have to sing off pitch in order for the auto-tune to sound good.
Yeah, I was about to say some artists that's their gimmick is the auto-tune, which is just like, you're not even an artist, buddy. If you perform live with auto-tune on and it's like part of your act, no, stop now.
That Gay Fish song from South Park, they were talking about trying to make it sound like a Kanye West song, like really hard.
Oh.
And
I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
We sang it on pitch and the auto-tune didn't sound right, and then you had to sing way off pitch in order to make the auto-tune sound right.
So it's not like a slight correction. It's like
a huge correction.
It's insane that you have to like push for it. You have to lean into it in order to get it to sound good. That's so bad. Ugh. It's filthy. It's atrocious. Anyway,
all right.
That's our little music rant. And we are going to get into the iTunes reviews, guys.
Okay, Drew, we got 2 iTunes reviews and a giveaway where we're going to be giving away both the 3 treasures for last month.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have a second episode last month like we planned on.
Sorry, guys.
And then this month we're going to be giving away Princess from the Moon.
Both high-class Japanese films, both Toho studio anniversary films, Princess of the Moon being the 55th, of course, and I can't remember which one the 3 treasures was.
I don't know. A while.
They're both big, high-budget, high-concept
That's right.
films. All right. Do you want to read the first or do you want me to?
I don't have it pulled up right now, so you're going to have to
all right.
either hand it to me or what.
Here, you read the first one. I want to read the brand new one.
Okay.
This one starting out, I have it right at the top there. I think it's Steve.
Perfect.
Steve something.
A fun way to rewatch some Big G movies from Steve Noda Decepticon.
Maybe that's the reason I gave it to you. I couldn't read the name.
As a casual Godzilla fan, I have most of the movies in my collection, but I don't know a lot of the history and definitely don't pretend to know a lot of the lore surrounding Toho monsters. So it's been fun to listen along with the Godzilla podcast as they experience some of these movies for the first time, as am I.
Quite a few, yeah.
And share their thoughts. They aren't hardcore fans, so it's a little easier to digest for someone like me who enjoys a good Godzilla good Godzilla film from time to time. I especially love the commentary aspect of the podcast. It's a slightly different perspective than just a review, allowing me to have the movie on in the background as well. Looking forward to making it through the rest of the series and learning a bit more about other Toho properties along the way. Keep it up.
So are we, and we will be doing that with you, Steve.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Continuing.
You're in the running for a future contest, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, we got it on the table. Speaking of which, before we read our next one, a Godzilla 1985 NECA action figure. Joe, look at that face there. Look at this face here. Are they not uncanny?
I think they look pretty close.
Yeah, they look pretty good. Yeah.
Not too bad.
Well, I'm holding the Godzilla 1985. That's right, 85 with Raymond Burr. It's definitely not a fan creation. But the DVD sitting here, not official at all, next to the NECA figure, and the faces of Godzilla on the cover and the figure are pretty similar. Yeah, they did a good job casting that. All right, good. So you are eligible for that if you've ever given us an iTunes review and have not won already. So going clear back, we can pick anybody. All right, this next one is from the lovely name ZGH5002. So a cyborg wrote this lovely review. A staple in my day. I came across this podcast by chance on the Godzilla subreddit when they released the Dogger episode and was instantly hooked. Oh, the Dogger episode. It's refreshing to find some kindred spirits who love Godzilla as much as I do. I find myself listening and re-listening to episodes while doing my daily routine. Over the course of many episodes, I found Joe and Drew to be both entertaining and informative, often finding information that seems next to impossible to find. Keep up the great work, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
You're also in the running for it.
Y'all are. Thanks for the reviews. They help our searchability, and they help grow the podcast so that we can do even more. And,
that's right. Hey, last week I saw that we were the #1 Godzilla podcast, by the way.
Number one on
iTunes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how we, at least in the search, and that doesn't mean that we're getting more downloads.
Yeah,
it does not mean that. But in the search, we were top for a few days. I haven't checked since then. But,
I always thought it would eventually happen because, Joe, the name of the podcast is the Godzilla podcast.
I know. It was a cheap marketing ploy on my part.
Hey, if you're going to be straightforward with the podcast...
I hope Toho doesn't get mad about this.
You know, what's our subject matter? What could the Godzilla podcast possibly be about?
Princess from the Moon, actually.
It's not clever. It's not derogatory of any, any sort of a phrase from pop culture or anything. It is so direct, and we're coming at you.
There's just there's a mega kaiju podcast that's been around for forever, and it was a strange day for me when we surpassed them at least on the rankings when you first search Godzilla. I was like, wow.
Yeah, to me that makes no sense still, even though we've been doing this for a while.
No, it was cool.
Yeah, it's way awesome. I dream of the day. Okay. So do we want to do our giveaway?
I'm going to list off all the patrons who helped us out on Space Amoeba. So thank you very much, guys.
And Godzilla gals.
And these people are the people who are eligible for the giveaway, except for one person who chose no reward tier when they chose to support us on Patreon, but I'll read their name anyway. So thank you very much to Chris Jappert, Jason Poor, Midnight Tease, who's going to be on an episode very soon. We already recorded it, so we'll get to that soon.
Good episode.
Ryan Davis and Serrano DB23, we owe Patreon episodes to. It's those two. And Serrano, please respond to your message. Ryan, I'll get back to you soon. Jesse Salcedo, Ethan Storen, thank you very much, guys. Or Storange. Hey, Ethan,
you got a strange name.
Could you possibly send us a thing that tells us how to pronounce your name?
A little audio clip.
I wouldn't mind that. Joel Klingel, Taylor Hensley, Ayame Chiba, Martin Wright, Chris Britt, and Michael. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. Drew's got his little random number generator
name and number
thing.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, let's do 3 treasures first.
That's what I was going to say. 3 treasures, and drum roll, please. Midnight Teas.
Midnight Teas. Congratulations on your brand new
3 Treasures
pirated, as far as I could tell, 3 Treasures DVD.
I hope you're a fan of epics, because this one is 3-ish hours long.
It's a big, big movie.
Right.
And now another big, big movie.
Yeah. Not as big, but still big. Okay. And Princess from the Moon winner is Joel Klingel.
Joel Klingel.
Joel.
Perfect.
Midnight Teas. Congratulations. Those will be shipped out shortly.
Yeah. Awesome. Congratulations, guys. I think that's going to be it, Drew.
I really don't. As far as news, the only thing I can think of is this month, Pacific Rim coming out. Next month, Rampage coming out.
Oh, we got to see Pacific Rim.
And Joe, I don't know when it is, but it's sometime this summer-ish. Ready Player One apparently has Mechagodzilla in it.
Does it really?
It's like a cameo appearance. I don't know how.
Ready Player One is like next week, Drew.
Oh, goodness.
It's very close.
You guys tell us whether it counts or not.
Oh, it counts, Drew. We're going to see it.
Dang it. Not gosh dang it.
Drew.
I haven't been to the movie theaters in like a year.
You're going to go to the movie theater about 4 times this year because of the Godzilla podcast.
Yep, you forced it upon me.
I didn't.
I don't.
There's nothing
I don't
more
not
fun
enjoy
than the movie theater. Okay,
it's true.
So come with me.
Come with Joe.
Eat some
to
popcorn.
the theater. Get some butter on your theater popcorn.
Yeah. That's a very interesting musical interlude there, Drew. Check us out at GodzillaPodcast.com. If you want to support the show, of course, we're doing Patreon. And hey, we're up to the point where we're giving a free kaiju movie away per month, usually. Sometimes we got to make up for it the next month and give away 2.
We're pretty close to Godzilla Island, as we've been saying for a while.
Yeah, we're $1 away from Godzilla Island, I think. I think. Well, we might have hit it, actually, Drew.
Joe, check. Let's see if this episode is going to be the definitive we now do have to do Godzilla Island episode.
Oh, it'll be after it gets, because someone could just like pledge $50 and then like go away.
As of right now, as we're looking at it,
are we gonna have to do this? Oh, dude, did we hit it? Oh, dude, we hit it.
Godzilla Island.
Oh.
Action figures in action. Stop motion.
I didn't even get an email. Usually you get an email telling you when you hit a goal, but
well, there we go.
Even get one.
You guys get Godzilla Island. I think the next.
Congratulations.
I think yeah. Well, we'll have to find out. Please.
Wait, aren't there like 300 like little like 2-minute shorts or whatever?
But they stitch them together in episodes, so it's like it's a normal series length. I think 20-ish episodes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think after that we have Hanna-Barbera, but let's not look forward to that until we get Godzilla Island in the can.
Hanna-Barbera's at $100 for commentary.
Mm-hmm.
So,
guys, thank you so much. You're amazing.
That's awesome.
Everybody who does everything, you can contact me on Twitter at Drew Daybell or at Gojira Jaeger. That's Jaeger.
And if you don't do anything, you can contact me at Joseph DeGolyer. DeGolyer.
Joe paying attention to my words more than I was.
Thanks. That's right, I am. Okay.
And that was it. Keep it G, guys.
It's Godzilla!